Chapter 477 The Dark Suit 2 Michael stopped by his room to change his clothes before meeting Arya and her brothers. Entering his room, he snapped his fingers as the light orbs fixed on the walls dimly lit the room in crimson red. Vidora jumped to the neatly made bed from his shoulder. The armor stand was located in the corner of his room beside the alchemy table void of any armor. Before equipping the armor through the system, he willed the system to put the armor on the armor stand. The next moment, the Lucifer armor was put on the armor by the system for display. Vidora noticed several changes in the armor, such as the armor being darker than before. The armor linings were painted in crimson red, the material of the armor seemed sturdy and the long blades sticking out of the wrists. These were all visible changes. In addition to them, Michael equipped the armor with the upgraded APD and Mark III grappling hook, while Eladir placed invisible runes that increased the armor's resilience to withstand an immense amount of both physical and magical attacks. Thanks to the runes, now his armor was resistant to fire except primordial flames. The upgraded version of APD enabled him to not only inject himself with potions and pills but also inject others using a retractable needle and spray potions through a sprayer attached to the center of his gloves. "You made some changes," Ayag commented at the armor. "I call this Dark Suit 2. Michael planned to forge a new, more powerful armor in the future, but for now, he had to make do with this armor. He made all the changes he did to his suit to Gaia's suit too. Except for the chest area in her armor designed to fit her bosom, both armors looked identical. For a few moments, he just stared at the armor, feeling the armor. Instead of willing the system to equip the armor in an instant, he manually wore the armor piece by piece. Sling, sling. After fitting the gauntlets around his wrist, Michael clenched his fist as the hidden blades came out, producing a sharp sling sound. He then raised his hand. A green mist sprayed out of his wrists. "What the heck is that?" Ayag frowned. "Fear toxin," Michael said, checking the APD by injecting himself with a healing potion. Several tests later, Michael put on the mask and finished putting on the armor. The latest underscores are on the L world. CTOM website. He walked towards the mirror to check himself out. To be honest, he looked frightening in the armor. So he decided to shroud himself with the cloud of darkness and light his eyes with eyes of darkness. Unlike before, his eyes were now flaming in dark flames. Since he was standing in his room, near the bed, he avoided conjuring the dark flames around him. Nonetheless, the little bit of dark flames coming out of his eyes was enough for Vidora to sense its overwhelming power. Sarba, who now possessed the god-level senses, noticed the violent surge of energy within him. Just looking at the dark energy within him gave him a headache. He quickly retracted his senses. "So that's the dark flames?" "One of the primordial flames," Sarba asked as Michael nodded. "Cool, isn't it? Or should I say hot?" Michael chuckled before putting off the dark flames. Soon, the shroud around him and the fire in his eyes vanished. "Let's go." Michael put on the hood. It was time for him to meet Arya and her two brothers, Titus and Optimus. Vidora jumped back on his shoulder with a swift leap. He made his way to the throne room where he planned to meet the trio. In the dark forest, two men with jacked-up bodies were treating a giant tree as their personal punching bag, while a girl with short hair sat on the branch above them and plucked the dark leaves one by one. "Are you becoming slow, Titus?" "Still faster than you." The two men breathed heavily as they were training in the dark forest for almost 10 hours. They were identical twins, and except for their hair color, nothing different about them. Even Arya would have a hard time if it wasn't for Titus having blonde hair and Optimus having brown hair. They had scars that many used to differentiate between the brothers. However, the healing potions and the rebuilding process healed all their scars. As a result, their skin was now smooth and scarless as a baby's bottom. Life in the dark forest was difficult for the brothers. Mainly it was boring, and they were prohibited to go on a murderous spree on those who enslaved them and killed their family. They still couldn't believe someone resurrected them and healed their bodies completely. The more they heard about this Lucifer from Arya, the more they were astonished by him. The tales Arya told them were simply mind-blowing. Updated _ L world. COM deep down in their hearts, they were glad Arya found a godlike figure to protect her. She had grown so much they could tell that. She was not a meek, scared little girl anymore as she defeated both of them in a fair fight. Titus and Optimus couldn't wait to see Arius Lord and Tiberius, who trained alongside them in the Ludus under Doctorus. My lords, my lady, Titus and Optimus stopped their training when they heard Azazel's voice. The first time they saw Azazel, they freaked out. Now they got used to the sudden appearances of Azazel. Lord Lucifer is here and he wants to meet the three of you in the throne hall. Arya immediately jumped down from the branch and landed on the ground nimbly. Titus and Optimus looked at each other. They seemed a bit tense. Still, they followed Arya and Azazel behind to the underground mansion. The hallways were as usual dimly lit with crimson-red orbs fixed onto the walls. The eerie silence would freak anyone out, and the two gladiators weren't an exception. As the narrow hallway opened up to the hall, they saw a figure gracefully sitting on the throne clad in dark armor. With one leg over another and head resting on his fist, he looked relaxed yet dominant. They noticed the three-headed creature atop the throne handle, looking down on them. My lord, Arya immediately dropped to one knee and bowed. She gave a stare to both of her brothers, wordlessly ordering them to do the same. Titus and Optimus, how are you two feeling? Titus and Optimus heard Lucifer talk in a demonic voice that perfectly suited him. Feeling well, thanks to you, my lord. Titus bowed his head. Considering Titus and Optimus were soldiers, they showed no lack of respect to their lords. Good, Michael used the X-ray eyes to see their cultivation level. It was no surprise to Michael that they were still at arch-sensing stage level 1. They barely had any arch energy circulating in their veins. Fortunately, they looked extremely fit and healthy. Are you two willing to be my subordinates and put an end to the slavery once and for all? Michael asked them directly without beating around the bush. Since Arya had already talked them down to accepting Lucifer as their lord, the two brothers didn't ask any questions. Yes, my lord, for more novel, visit L-World. The two brothers said, bowing in unison. Does the host wish to accept Titus Atronius as a subordinate? Does the host wish to accept Optimus Atronius as a subordinate? As soon as the brothers agreed to serve him as his subordinates, the system's notification sounded in his mind. Yes, at the current level of the system, he was allowed to have 11 subordinates. Currently, he had 9 subordinates, and with Titus and Optimus, he had reached the maximum level of subordinates. Of course, he could have more subordinates, but the system rules for a subordinate wouldn't apply to them, and he wouldn't be able to see their loyalty level. He planned to make Daniel his subordinate, except now he had no slots remaining for him. That wasn't a problem, as Daniel and Ricky were absolutely loyal to him. Michael quickly took a look at their loyalty level to see the brothers harboring 56% loyalty towards him, while Arya had 87%. Her loyalty level pleased him, contrary to her low cultivation level. She was still at the body strengthening stage despite taking all the potions and pills he was providing her. She couldn't blame her though, because her body was still adapting to the conditions of cultivation continence. It would take years for her to absorb all the arch energy provided by the pills and potions, and she was considered a genius compared to the rest of the Southerners. So unless he finds a way to quicken the cultivation speed of all his Southern continent subordinates, it would take decades for them to even reach the core formation stage. Showing all these thoughts and future plans to the corner of his mind, he stood up. Families can be your strength and weakness. Remember that. Michael stood from his throne after speaking those words. Now that you three spend time together, it's time to get back to work. Arya, Michael looked at Arya. My lord, take your brothers to Bradford. Sadie will use her connection there to get them into the army. Michael started his long-term plan of army building by sending Titus and Optimus to Bradford, where they would be trained by Ghost. In other words, by himself. Visit L-World. Com for a better user experience. As you wish, my lord. Deep down, Arya was glad to hear Lucifer's order. Compared to serving Lucifer directly, getting appointed as soldiers under the new King Ghost was much safer. According to the information Arya gathered, Bradford was managed by the Sunrise sect rather than the new king, who goes by the name Ghost. Due to the agreements Ghost signed with King Bredia, Bradford was immune to invasions and wars. Thus, she knew her brothers would be much safer in Bradford. After Arya and her brothers left the hall, Michael activated the runic teleportation to teleport to Caius' home with Vidora. Sarba's help would be vital for the task he was about to undertake. Chapter 478. The Castle of Vampires. Maxine and Tiberius were waiting in Caius' room with Caius for the Dark Lord. Since everything was going according to plan without any hiccups, they were pretty relaxed. Compared to the other two, Tiberius was slightly tensed up as he didn't like whatever slaughtered Logan's village to be alive and well. Logan told all about how their battle went. Tiberius thought only Lucifer and the Dark Queen could use magic, but now, there was another one. He couldn't wait to get some answers from Lucifer. Luckily, he didn't have to wait any longer as Michael appeared in the room out of thin air. "My lord," Maxine immediately dropped to her knees, then Caius and finally Tiberius did the same. "Rise." Michael approached the chair before willing the system to replace the chair with his throne. "You must be Caius." The moment Michael placed Vidora on the oak table, Iag locked her gaze with Caius. Except for Maxine, who met Vidora a couple of times, Tiberius and Caius were startled to hear the menacing voice of the white head among the three. "Yes, yes, my lady," Iag emphasized the word my lady. She was extremely overbearing and dominant that despite her stature, she exerted enough pressure on Caius to turn his face pale. "Tiberius, I presume, nice to meet you." Sarba talked in an exactly opposite way of how Iag spoke to Caius. Tiberius was surprised by how polite and respectful the silver head was. Well, it took a couple of seconds for Tiberius to find the right words to greet the majestic creature looking at him. "Fuck it." Tiberius pushed away the thought of finding fancy words. "Nice to meet you too." Tiberius went with a simple greet as Sarba nodded. "Enough pleasantries." Michael raised his arm. "Before we move to the obvious, tell me, how's everything on your end?" Caius saw the dark eyes staring at him, and it felt as though he was staring into his soul itself. "We have no problems on our side, my lord. In a week, Maven will be merged with Giselle with the support of the people of Maven. The latest ___ are on __ the L-World. CTOM website. The civil war he incited in Maven was going to finally pay off. He was glad to hear this update. General Quintus has recently started invading the lands of Prerid. The name General Quintus rang a bell in his head. He pondered for a moment before remembering everything about Quintus. He was the man who invaded Arya's homeland, Weesite. He decimated the kingdom completely, removing Weesite from the map and expanding the territory of Kingdom Myril. "What's our stand in this war?" "I was thinking we should support Prerid, my lord." Caius stepped forward and pointed at the map on the table. His finger was on the kingdom Prerid adjacent to Maven. And the kingdom of Prerid was located between Maven and Myril. General Quintus has been expanding his territory for decades, and typically every 3 or 4 years, we have to change the map because of him. If we conquered Prerid, the possibility of him trying to invade Maven is high. Everyone in the room agreed with Caius. "Cain, you think you can handle this?" Michael asked Cain instead of guiding Caius on what to do next. He decided to treat this situation as a test for Cain. "Yes," Cain said confidently. He already plotted a plan in his head. Then Michael turned his gaze towards Maxine. "What about you, Maxine? How is the mining going on?" "The new machines and the pulley system will be installed next week, my lord. After that, the mining process would be 300% faster." "Good," Michael nodded. Finally, he turned his gaze to Tiberius. However, instead of asking for an update, Michael gave Tiberius an update. "We are going to capture that vampire, dead or alive," Tiberius has to say. He was indeed relieved to hear Lucifer. "How's Logan doing?" After what happened to Logan's village, Tiberius offered Logan to settle in Freedom City, which Logan wholeheartedly agreed, not that Logan had any choice. The big man needed a safe place for the surviving villagers and his wife. "He's adjusting," said Tiberius. "New novel _chap_ are published here, L-World. See, Caius, prepare the airship." "Yes, my lord." Caius bowed before leaving the room. "My lord, what is that thing? It called itself a greater vampire?" Tiberius doubtfully asked. "That's what we are gonna find out. One thing for sure though, these creatures are extremely dangerous." Michael was fascinated by the vampires. However, He was also cautious since they could sue arch-energy. His highest priority was to know more about the vampires, mainly, what are their strengths and weaknesses? How strong are they? Their hierarchy, how many of them are there? And finally, what's their purpose? Michael needed answers to all these questions. I am sure Sarba here could help you locate that soon-to-be-dead piece of shit, Iag menacingly said as Sarba bobbed his head up and down. Tiberius sensed the temperature suddenly dropping a bit. He then saw the intense murdering intent in the white-head's eyes. Somehow, it reminded him of the Dark Queen, which made him wonder where the Dark Queen was. Kane remained silent without participating in Iag's conversation. He was ironing out the tiny details in his plan until Michael said something related to the upcoming war between Pre-Rid and Myral. The slavery will soon come to an end after this war, Michael said looking at Tiberius. He truly felt grateful to Lucifer in this regard. Just like he promised, Lucifer helped him build a new kingdom for all those who've been enslaved by the rich. Whether Myral and Pre-Rid would be merged with Giselle and become a single large kingdom or not, Tiberius knew the slavery is coming to an end soon. It's ready, my lord, Maxine said after being told by Caius through the earpiece. Her words brought Tiberius out of his imaginary world where slavery existed no more. Finally, Tiberius was relieved. Although it was only 5 minutes since Caius left, it felt like an eternity. The safety of his people was the most important thing to Tiberius. Now that the vampires threatened the very thing he was trying to protect, Tiberius was royally pissed off and wanted nothing more than to kill that bloodsucker. Tiberius and Maxine moved closer to his throne while Vidora jumped back on Michael's shoulder. The next moment, Michael activated the runic teleportation to teleport themselves to Caius' airship. Tiberius hated teleportation, but closing his eyes helped him deal with the aftereffects. When he opened his eyes, he was standing in the airship. Set a course to where Logan fought the vampire, Maxine ordered Caius as though she read Michael's thoughts. The daylight arrived as such intricately woven threads of gold so light that its creator could only be divine. On their way to the destination, Michael remained with his eyes closed. He was meditating and organizing his thoughts. Ever since he merged himself to become whole, he felt extremely powerful, which might unstable his mind as it did to Spectre. Therefore, he continued the meditation, which helped him control and connect with the dormant powers within him. After almost half an hour of flying, they finally reached their destination. From above, there was nothing but forest beneath them. Rather than flying down as Maxine and Tiberius expected, Michael took out several drones from his system storage. "Open the door," Michael ordered Maxine as she walked to the door followed by the drones. As soon as she opened the door, a loud howling sound coupled with a powerful suction force tried to suck everything out of the airship. Maxine quickly shut the door and the drones were already out in the air. The latest ____ are on _the L world. CTOM website. Michael closed his eyes yet again, monitoring and controlling all the drones manually. The drones buzzed through the forest like busy bees trying to get honey out of flowers. Only in this scenario, they were surveying the area for the vampires. Maxine and Tiberius noticed his eyes were abruptly opening after a few minutes. "Did you locate him?" asked Iag. "You two stay here." Michael's face was serious underneath his mask. They couldn't see the look on his face. Still, they didn't try to disagree with him, even Tiberius, who was unable to wait patiently for the vampire. As he was walking towards the door with Vidora on his shoulder, Maxine followed him behind. Michael opened the door and everything happened just like before. Without wasting a second, Michael jumped out of the airship. He soared through the air like a meteor. Breaking through the canopy and countless branches, Michael and Vidora landed on the ground. Michael noticed the broken trees and the clearing, which were clear signs of the battle between the vampire and Logan. Although the rain that day wiped away the prints and the blood, Michael had a way to bring back the traces he needed. "What's the plan?" asked Iag, looking around the forest. Sensing strange vibrations coming from that direction, Sarba looked at their right side as Michael expected. Still, Michael needed one more test before pursuing the vibrations Sarba been sensing. Michael waved his hand around him, spraying a translucent liquid in the air. When the tiny particles of the potion melded with the ground beneath, several glowing footprints began to appear in their sight. This potion was the better version of the potion he used at Jack's murder site. The potion would reveal the blood stains even after days or even months. Almost 99% of footprints were chaotic and human, except for the remaining 1%. It looked like a human footprint, however, only that pair of footprints were leading to the place where Michael noticed an anomaly. If that's the footprints of the vampire, I have to say, it awfully similar to a human's system. Teleport Vidora back to the airship if things go south, although I doubt it will, Michael ordered the system. Yes, since Vidora was familiar, he didn't have to pay extra as he already paid up front before making Vidora his familiar. Michael followed the footprints while closely monitoring the environmental scanning map. In addition, the drones were also hovering around them to make sure no one ambushed them. There was nothing out of the order in the forest they noticed while following the tracks. The forest was dark and gloomy. The trees danced to an unheard beat, whispering their songs to the wind. Here, sheltered by the mighty trees, was every kind of life, from the humble beetle to poisonous snake. Their journey came to an end when they noticed the glowing footprints were no longer to be found. That's where Michael's X-ray vision came into the picture. What seemed like countless trees and muddy ground intervened with veins and roots. What seemed to be the perfect picture of rainforest wasn't a forest at all. It was an illusion, and Michael could see through this illusion thanks to his X-ray vision. Ignitia, Michael pointed his finger at a tree branch directly above them. The moment the lightning bolt hit the branch, Vidora saw the scenery before them flickering. Soon, the forest they saw just a moment ago completely vanished from existence. Visit L-World. Sium, for the best no_vel_read_g experience, a gloomy grayish area welcomed them, and in the distance, they saw an ancient castle under a blood-red sky. Chapter 479, The Castle of Vampires 2. System, the moment you sense a threat we can't handle, by a teleportation scroll and teleport me away, Michael telepathically talked to the system. He was standing in what felt like a pocket dimension similar to the one in the dark forest. As far as his environmental scanning could reach, the scanning found no living beings. He knew that didn't mean he was alone in the dimension. Once again, he raised his arms, spraying the potion into the air to reveal the bloody tracks. This place looks freaky, Sarba commented, looking around the freaky castle grounds. There were countless skeletons that seemed like giant birds lay on the ground, half buried in the red sand. He followed the bloody foot tracks left behind by the vampire to the castle. He had reached the 30 steps leading to the castle, yet there were no guards, defenses, or anything for that matter. Michael climbed the stairs, showing no signs of fear. Ever since he merged his soul pieces back together, he barely felt any fear. That didn't mean he was void of fear, he just changed. Before, when his soul was split into 3, he would have been a little freaked out. When they climbed up the steps and saw 2 statues of soldiers flanking the giant oak door. I sense 2 life signs, Sarba closed his eyes before saying. Meanwhile, Michael pushed open the door, revealing the empty, gloomy throne hall. As he entered the throne hall, he was welcomed by slim braziers hanging from each of the 12 limestone columns that lit up every part of the throne hall and coat everything in a red glimmer. The humongous chandeliers hanging from the arched ceiling dance in the flickering light, while statuettes and gargoyles looked down upon the stone floor of this magnificent hall. A blood-red rug split the entire room in half and was matched by the thinner ones on either side of the hall, while ribbon banners with burnished margins draped from the walls. Between each banner hangs a torch. They've all been lit and in turn illuminated the mosaics of various figures. Massive, colored glass windows were neighbored by veils colored the same chestnut as the banners. The curtains have been adorned with emblazoned edges and decorating tips. Regardless of the decoration and the grandeur of the throne hall, it lacked the thing a throne hall shouldn't, a throne. There was no throne in the throne hall. Where the throne should have been was a 4-foot pillar. Atop the pillar one could see a porcelain bowl. Where are the vampires? Are they cocky bastards who think no one would break into their castle, or they are dead? Iag couldn't help asking after noticing the barren land and the empty throne hall. I told you, I'm sensing 2 living beings. They are down, Sarba informed as Michael walked towards the pillar. While he was walking, Iag looked around for stairs. However, she found none. The throne hall had no other rooms, stairs, or anything that seemed like leading to the other parts of the castle. I don't see any stairs, Iag headbutt Michael on the side of his face. Because there aren't any, Michael calmly said. System, scan this pillar. He willed the system, paying 1,000 badass points. The host needs the blood of a vampire to activate this lift. Since you don't have any, you have to pay the system additional 4,000 badass points to hack the lift. Hack it. The latest _AP_SODIs are on _the L world. Zoom website. Vidora saw the ground beneath tremble as the ground began to descend. A lift, interesting, Michael was amused. Something told me the vampires might be slightly or ridiculously advanced than the rest of the world. This was the first time he had seen a lift in this world. The lift was descending for almost 10 minutes before it came to a halt. The wall before them slowly slid open to reveal yet another gloomy hall lit with torches. Unlike the throne hall above, this hall was darker, gloomier and had one large round table at the end of the hall. Where are the two? Iag asked Sarba. There, Sarba looked near the round table. You smell that? Sarba asked. The place reeks of blood. Iag took a whiff of the air and said, as they were saying, the place indeed reeked of blood. Too much blood to be honest. Michael could imagine what kind of horrors might have happened here or how much blood would have been spilled for the air to turn like this. If a weak-hearted person entered here, they would have been puking their guts out. Even with his mask which was built to filter the air, he could smell the blood. There's a door. When they reached the round table, they saw a metal door on the side of the wall. Rather than immediately checking out what's on the other side of the metal door, Michael hopped over the round table because that's where the bloody footprints ended and a huge splatter of blood could be seen. My gut says it's our greater vampire, Iag said as Sarba and Kane nodded. Michael squatted down to check out the dried blood. What are you doing? Iag saw Michael scrap the dried blood off the ground and put chunks of blood into a vial. It's possible they had a meeting here and the higher-ups in the vampire hierarchy killed the greater vampire for leaving witnesses. Kane saw the chairs around the table and connected the dots. Iag and Sarba nodded as Kane's words made sense. Why shouldn't we ask the one there? Michael pointed at the metal door. Michael calmly walked towards the door but not before placing spider all around the hall and sending a few through the gap between the door and the floor to see what's on the other side. His drones were still flying around the castle grounds to see if anyone was coming, but until now, the drones found no one. The castle grounds were empty. Michael's calm face turned cold as he kicked open the metal door. Visit L World. Sim for a better user experience boom. The metal door flew into the hall on the other side like a bullet, revealing a cloaked figure at the end of the hall. Vidora could see another figure tied to a pole in front of the cloaked figure. Just in time, I was getting sick of this guardian blood. The cloak figure's cold voice echoed through the empty dark hall. One could barely see anything in the hall, and if it wasn't for the ceiling directly above the cloaked figure letting through some light, the hall would be pitch black. The figure slowly turned around like a supervillain in a movie. The figure took his sweet time taking off the cloak. As soon as he did, Michael was surprised because he had seen him way before. Victor. It was Victor. The same Victor he saw on the Phoenix Island where he had a conflict with Lord Julius. At that time, Victor was a core-strengthening stage warrior. On the other hand, Victor had no idea that the man before him was Ghost. Even if he did, Michael didn't think Victor would give a damn. Three-headed Hydra, exotic. Victor licked his lips, and when he did, Michael saw the vampire fangs sticking out of his mouth. They were longer and more menacing than the ones shown in the movies. Not more exotic than a vampire, Michael snickered as the grin on Victor's face turned evil. Darkness gives thy blessing. Victor roared. The very next moment, Victor turned onto a cloud of red smoke. The smoke vanished as Vidora looked around. Since Victor disappeared, they were able to see the girl tied to the pole. The girl's head was hidden beneath the sack on her head, and that was the only part of her body that had some cover as she stood naked. Her body was covered in her own blood. Vidora looked closer, finding that the girl was not tied to the pole but nailed to the pole through her arms, legs, and stomach. She looked like Jesus except she was bloodier, naked, and had several bite marks. It was obvious the vampires had been munching on her like she was some kind of living blood bag. Seeing this, Michael was pissed off. "Behind us!" Sarba shouted, sensing Victor's presence behind them. Victor wrapped his arms around Michael, and just when he was about to sink his teeth into Michael's neck, the dark flames shot out of his body. "Ah!" Victor immediately leaped away from Michael, screaming in agony. Just a sliver of dark flames was enough to burn Victor's armor to nothingness. "I thought vampires would be stronger." Michael raised his hand as the shadows surrounding Victor moved as though they came to life and grew limbs. They instantly grabbed Victor. "You get powers from the darkness." "But I am." Michael flicked and pulled his arm as Victor flew right into his arm. The darkness sling. The source of this chapter, L-World. Michael lifted Victor by his neck in one hand and the hidden blade came out of its sheath in the other hand. Michael swung the hidden blade, cutting Victor's right hand clean off from his shoulder. Victor screamed in agony. However, the right arm grew back in a couple of seconds. Regeneration. Michael's curiosity was just piqued. Victor tried to fight back using his newly grown hand. He cut Victor's hand once again, but this time, he used dark flames to burn the shoulder. I want. Michael heard a weak voice as Victor was screaming in agony. He turned his head and saw the naked girl moving her feet. He screamed more. Although the voice of the girl was so weak as though she was on the verge of death, it was filled with pain and murderous intent. "You heard the lady," this time Iag spoke. Then she opened her mouth to breathe bright blue flames. Victor was screaming as the blue flames kept burning his body like marshmallows. His body was healing as fast as Iag burnt him. Still, he screamed in excruciating pain. "If you expecting backup, don't." Michael raised his hand as Iag stopped burning him. "I dispelled all the surveillance arrays and runes in the castle." Michael's calm words startled Victor and destroyed his hope. He agreed to be the bait, thinking the elder vampires would come to his rescue when or if things go south. The only way they could know what was happening in the castle was through the surveillance runes and arrays placed all around the castle. Even Vidora had no idea when he did that and was completely taken aback by surprise. "Did you think I will walk into a trap willingly?" Michael's evil laughter reverberated in the castle. This time, a large needle reached out of Michael's wrist, injecting a powerful knockout potion into Victor's bloodstream. Finally, his screams and body twitching came to an end. He dragged Victor to the girl by his neck. He then grabbed the sack on her, pulling it away to see her face. Try the L-World. COM platform_ for the most advanced reading experience. Peyton. Chapter 480. Can Peyton be turned against the Guardians? Michael wasn't as surprised as Vidora was because Michael knew it was Peyton way before he took off the sack around her head. He heard Tyriana and the Alpha Guardian talk about the missing Guardians led by Peyton, and Victor told him he was sick of Guardian blood. Michael connected the dots and reached a conclusion: it was Peyton. Peyton's face was messed up as though the vampires were drinking her blood and beating her up for some sick pleasure. Michael hated the Guardians, but no one deserved this. Peyton could barely say the word. "I think we should put her out of her misery," Iag sighed. Even Iag, who inherited the personality of Gaia, couldn't help feeling pity for Peyton. "No." Michael gently grabbed her bloodied shoulder, injecting her with a little bit of healing potion to keep her alive and with the blood tonic to end her life if she tried to be a hero, although Michael doubted she would. "Are you the Dark Lord?" Instead of answering Peyton, Michael retrieved a piece of cloth and covered her naked body before removing the nails. "System, teleport us to the crypt." Michael willed the system. Since Michael was with Peyton and Victor, he couldn't use the runic teleportation. Hence, the system happily bought a teleportation scroll for 10,000 badass points and used it to teleport them away from the vampire castle, but not before leaving a teleportation rune. Delar and Jesse were attaching mind-controlling chips inside the Alpha Undead when they say Dark Lord suddenly appeared in the middle of the hall out of thin air. Carry on. Michael was too focused on the task at hand to notice the 20 Alpha Undead standing at ease like super soldiers. First, Michael injected Victor with a whole lot of paralyzing poison and fear toxin. Then, he forced Peyton to sit on one of the chairs in front of a large oak table and his throne. Peyton was too traumatized to even look around. Her dead eyes had lost the glow Michael saw in them when they met before. He could only imagine what she may have gone through. "You should see this." Michael waved his hand as a giant mirror appeared before Peyton. Peyton's attention was immediately drawn by the feed that appeared. She saw the familiar faces of Tiriana and the person she looked up to the most, Tanulia, aka the Alpha Guardian of Hunter Guardians. Peyton recruited these guardians and... What is it, Tiri? Visit L-World. Him for a better user experience. The last member she recruited is Sabrina. Sabrina Winston, Noah's little sister. What the fuck was she thinking? She recruited someone who's not even a guardian? That bitch is expendable. But not her. If we are to lose Sabrina and Noah found out that his little sister died because of us, everything will be ruined. The feed stopped as Vidora expected some anger outburst from Peyton. However, Peyton didn't react as they expected. Only tears were rolling out of her eyes. No one knew what she was thinking in her mind. Michael began to play the mind games with her by putting the feed on a loop. That bitch is expendable. But not her. Peyton was feeling so many emotions at once. We have to find her no matter what. Immediately contact every single guardian in the southern continent. I'm authorizing Code Red. Use all and any resources. I need Sabrina found ASAP. I will contact the other alphas. After Tanulia spoke these words in the feed, Michael tapped the table. Your devotion is misplaced, Peyton. You heard her. For them, you who dedicated your whole life to the guild is simply, Michael paused for a moment, expendable. Michael willed the system to play the feed again, fanning the flames of anger within Peyton's heart. Peyton couldn't move her eyes away from the mirror. She felt so betrayed because she was betrayed. She lost the count of days being tortured and getting her blood sucked out by vampires in that torture room. All that time, she had hope in Alpha Guardians and the Hunter Guardians that they would come to her rescue. The vampires tortured her every single minute without a break. Every single day, they sexually abused her. They sucked her blood from every bit of her body, cut her flesh for fun, and healed her up so they could start all over again. Nothing was able to break her spirit as she endured everything they did to her. However, Tanulia's words hurt and caused her more pain than the vampires ever could. This is the real face of the so-called guardians, Peyton. It took several minutes before Peyton opened her mouth. Why did you save me? She looked directly in his eyes, completely avoiding eye contact with Vidora. on L-World. Because you don't deserve what you went through and I only punish those who deserve to be punished. You're free to go. I bet they will welcome you with a parade, Iag said sarcastically. Even if they don't throw you in the prison or whatever the Guardians have, your career ends here, Kane informed Peyton. After hearing his siblings talk, Sarba also decided to give her a piece of his mind. You should really think about what you're gonna do next, Peyton. They don't deserve your faith and loyalty anymore. If it wasn't for him, who you people branded evil, you would have been still in that hell. Your guild calls themselves Guardians, but they failed to guard their own. If they wanted, they could have used the resources they are spending on locating Sabrina to save you, your team, and eradicating the vampires. Michael let Sarba talk. He could see Peyton trembling in anger, and her blood-red eyes as well as the veins bulging out of her skin was evident of her anger. They're probably not even aware of the vampires because they are too busy searching for one person. The moment you return to your guild, they will treat you more like a traitor than a survivor. Do yourself a favor, don't believe the Guardians and the great clans blindly. They are not what you think. While Peyton was staring at Vidora, Michael moved a spider into her hair, then into her skin through the cut on the back of her neck. Take a long look in the mirror and think about where your loyalty should be. I know you joined Guardians wanting to change the world for the better. If you still want to do that, come find me. Michael slid a card marked with the location of somewhere secluded in the Elon continent. The very next moment, Michael waved his hand as Peyton disappeared from the crypt. Vidora did not expect Michael would teleport Peyton away, as they thought he was going to turn her against the Guardians or at least get some valuable information about the Guardians from her. What the hell did you do? I thought we were getting close to turning her against her people, Iag frowned. She is too emotional now. We just put the seed of anger and betrayal in her heart. Let's give it some time to grow and become a giant tree. Then, we don't have to go to her, she will come to us. Michael was pretty confident. There was no turning back for Peyton after hearing Tanulia and Tiriana. She was betrayed by the people she trusted, which would do some serious damage to her and shake Peyton's beliefs. I hope she doesn't blabber about us and everything, said Iag. She won't. Michael shook his head slightly. If she tried, Michael would know and he would activate the nanites in her body to kill her instantly. The sun was slowly rising on the horizon from its slumber, painting the green hills of the sunrise sect with its golden rays. The early morning arrived as a promise kept for the disciples to spend yet another day in their wonderful sect. A group of students was flocking toward a gigantic dome made of glass with bright faces. Today they were going to harvest the ripened fruits and herbs from the largest herbal garden in all the sects on the Elon continent. Unlike 2 years ago, the Sunrise sect was filled with disciples. The place looked lively as never before. There were many new buildings, teachers, fountains, and carriages going in and out. Most of these carriages belonged to various nobles who were trying to put their kids into the sect because the Sunrise sect had become one of the best in Elon. Updated _ at World. Calm at the moment, a green-haired beauty was running through the crowd of students carrying a stack of books in her hand towards the herbal garden. Good morning, Miss Olivia. Good morning, Miss Olivia. Morning, Miss Olivia. Good morning, good morning, good morning. The students were greeting Olivia while moving away from her path. Today was the last day of the assignments Ghost gave her and she had to harvest 128 herbs to be exact. In her hurry to the garden, she dropped one of her books. She didn't notice that until someone called her from behind. You dropped this. Olivia's mind realized the chit-chatter of the students suddenly disappeared as though someone switched off the noise around her. Her body froze in its path when she recognized the face. As expected, she turned around and saw her mentor, Ghost, smiling at her. Teacher. She almost put the stacks of books in her hand down in shock. Most of the students who were new to the sect and hadn't seen Ghost in person were stunned too. They were just gawking at him with their eyes wide open. Michael walked towards Olivia, who was trembling due to the surprise he gave her. She hadn't expected Ghost to be back for another 3 months. Teacher, you're back. Yep. Let's go see sect leader Claire and everyone. Michael loved the sound of notifications ringing in his head, awarding him with badass points. It had been 3 months since he left the sect, and if his math was right, 50 million gold coins would be sitting there for him to collect. It was time he turned those coins into badass points using the banker function and upgraded the system so he could have more subordinates. As soon as he finishes here, he could finally start interrogating Victor back in the Dark Forest. The latest underscores are on the L world. COM website. Chapter 481 Cold War between Bradford and Bredia. Cold War between Bradford and Bredia. Teacher, Olivia was brimming with joy, but soon, Michael noticed slight distress in her eyes. Or should I call you Your Majesty? Olivia joked. Michael smiled and patted her gently on the back. I'm not into the king thing very much, he said while walking towards Claire's mansion, which was buzzing with people. Teacher, I thought you'll be gone for 18 months. Did you get expelled? She started at him curiously with her big round eyes. Geesh, why did you think that? They just got impressed with your teacher's skills and gave him early holidays. Somehow Olivia didn't think he was joking, though he said like he was kidding. For a moment, Olivia dragged her voice as though she was searching for words in her mind. Teacher, how long will you be here? Michael asked. At the same time talking to Olivia, he didn't fail to greet the students who were dying to talk to him. Everyone Michael smiled at was trembling in joy. They were over the moon. A simple gesture like nodding and patting on the back raised Michael's image in their hearts to the next level. For Michael, it felt great to receive badass points just by walking and greeting students. He didn't even do anything badass, yet he was receiving a lot of badass points. A month or so, she halted her steps suddenly as Michael turned to see her looking at him with puppy eyes. Would you please come to the alchemy tournament as a judge? Michael was surprised by her requests. He creased his brows. Visit L World. for the best no____ experience, alchemy tournament? That was supposed to happen months ago, right? Olivia nodded. Yes, but they postponed it for some reason. It's starting next week, and the guild has been sending me so many letters asking me if you can come to the tournament as one of the judges. Michael couldn't help snicker. What changed? I recall they asked me to come to the tournament as a participant, not as a judge. Michael resumed walking. They said there was some kind of mix-up and someone wrote a wrong invitation. Really? Michael dragged the word as though he was laughing inside. Both of them knew it was nothing but a blatant lie. There was no mix-up or mistake. They were too arrogant to invite someone who was just a fraction of their age as their fellow judge. Now that they learned he got admitted into Mazeroth, they just wanted to curry favor. What's in it for me? And if my memory serves right, you were training a group of students? Yes, I am still training them, and the answer to your first question is Aqua Auction Token. That's what you will get, teacher, should you choose to come as a judge. What's that? Michael asked. He had no idea what the heck is an Aqua Token. But by the look on Olivia's face, he realized that it might be a big deal. Since auctions were places where he could find some really powerful artifacts, he was tempted to accept the Alchemy Guild's request. Why am I not surprised? She sighed, thinking about her teacher's lack of knowledge of what's happening in the world. You heard about the Phoenix Manor auction, right, teacher? Michael nodded. How could he forget that place? He met his vampire friend there, and at that time, Lord Julius, who was a core-strengthening stage warrior, threatened his life. Well, the Phoenix Manor auction is a beggar compared to the Aqua auction. It's one of the most prominent and if not the biggest auction in the world. If you want to actually bid for the items in the auction, the token is the only way. People will pay millions to get their hands on the tokens, so where will this auction take place exactly? Visit to Elworld. COM discover_new novels. Kingdom Ilera in our continent. Until now, Michael was only tempted to go as a judge, but after hearing that the auction will take place in the R continent, he decided to accept the Alchemy Guild's invitation. He always wanted to check out the most powerful and the richest continents of them all, but he didn't get the chance till now. When? Asked Michael. If it was before Mazeroth, he wouldn't have worried about the time. Now he had to, as he only got 45 days of break. 2 weeks from today, and do not worry about the traveling time, teacher. The token has a rune that will teleport you directly to one of the rooms assigned to that token in Ilera. You can bring Elia with you and speak of Elia. Olivia looked around to locate Elia. It was rare for Olivia or anyone to see Ghost alone without his other shadow. Stop looking, she is still in seclusion. Heath, Olivia giggled, squinting her eyes. She forgot the thing that's been bothering her for a moment. Both of them discussed alchemy on their way to Claire's mansion, and when they entered the mansion, they saw Claire sitting on a throne-like sofa and talking to several men and women in their middle ages. She had one leg over another and looked intimidating like a queen. That's your problem. I want the patty seeds delivered on the agreed date. Claire's brows arched up as though they were a pair of swords. Her voice and demeanor were extremely dominating, which made Michael appreciate her. If I heard one more bandit attack or out-of-stock excuse from any of you, I will personally bring down the wrath of the entire Sunrise sect on every single of you. Michael could see the people shivering from where he was standing. In her furious state, Claire failed to notice Ghost standing in the hallway. What about you, Lord Cyril? Claire turned her gaze to the one sitting right to her. What made you hand over the working contracts to Kethin instead of Bradford? As I recall, you always hired the people of Bradford, not Kethin. Your decision has cost hundreds of people losing their jobs. Olivia began to shudder. Everyone in the sect was trying to fix the situation of Bradford before Ghost came back from Mazeroth. They all feared how Ghost would react if he knew what's going on in Bradford. Claire and the elders didn't try to hide the situation, but they wanted to deal with the situation themselves instead of involving him or Elia. Sect leader Claire, can we address the elephant in the room? We are here because of the Cold War between Bradford and Bredia. Our hands are tied, sect leader Claire. We cannot make an enemy out of King Bredia and Ghost. That's King Ghost for you, Claire coldly corrected the brown-haired man. Pardon me, sect leader. We cannot make an enemy out of King Bredia or King Ghost. We may have given the jobs to Kethin, but we will give the mining contract to the people of Bradford. That would suffice, right? The man tried his best to sound as polite and courteous as possible. The most up-to-date NOV_Ls are published here L-World. People of Bradford are not miners, Lord Cyril. They are farmers and fishermen. Besides, the mines at the border between Bredia and Bradford. I don't have to remind you how many men and women Bredian soldiers arrested for some phony crimes they never committed in the first place. Michael was listening to her words calmly. His calmness freaked Olive as she knew that there will always be calmness before a freakin' storm. That's why we recommend you hold a peace talk with King Bredia and sort this out, sect leader Claire. We feel like we're stuck in a tug of war between Bredia and Bradford, the dark-haired woman sitting next to Cyril pleaded to Claire as they all bobbed their heads. In 3 days, King Bredia will hold a gala celebrating the engagement between Princess Catherine and Andrew Winston. If you would. Lord Cyril didn't finish his sentence as his words trailed away. They were merchants who had several contacts in both kingdoms. Through those contacts, they learned that King Bredia hasn't invited anyone from Bradford, not even for a courtesy. Thus, they were practically asking Claire to go uninvited and hold a peace talk with him, which had the highest possibility of her being humiliated or disrespected by King Bredia and his men regardless of her status. It's more appropriate for me to attend. Before Claire could respond to Cyril, another voice reverberated in the hall. They all turned their heads in the direction where the voice came from and saw Ghost walking towards them. They felt chill running through their spines as they immediately stood up as though their seats were on fire. Ghost, Claire lost her domineering demeanor when she saw him. A wide grin from ear to ear emerged on her cold face. She almost hugged him, but fortunately she stopped herself with only squeezing his hands. King Ghost, Your Majesty, some addressed him by King while some mumbled Your Majesty in shock and surprise. The pressure on their shoulders just multiplied by 1,000 folds after he made his appearance. They thought Claire was exerting dominance until he appeared. Sect leader Claire, you're looking good. Before dealing with the situation at hand, Michael greeted Claire with a smile. He took Claire by her hand and made her sit on the sofa back. Olivia stood beside Claire waiting to see how is he going to deal with the merchants. I am sorry for the hardships you've been facing because of Bradford. Thank you for coming here, ladies and gentlemen. I will personally meet King Bredia and fix everything. Michael emphasized the word everything. His words should have reassured them. Instead, they all shuddered because those words sounded more like a declaration of war. Olivia, please show these ladies and gentlemen the way out. Ladies and gentlemen, Olivia gestured at the merchants to follow her. The merchants did not dare to linger any longer. They rushed outside, leaving Claire and Ghost behind. Only when the merchants left the hall and Olivia returned, Michael sat on the sofa beside Claire. Visit L-World. .com for a better reading experience. So King Bredia's been giving Bradford a hard time, huh? Some people never let go of something they should, do they? The smile on Michael's face disappeared and in its place, a cold, murderous look arose. Although you won't miss anything in HBS if you don't read Anti-Hero with a Symbiote System, HSS, I strongly recommend everyone to read it because HSS is set in the parallel universe of HBS and you will see lots of references to Michael and insights of HBS universe as well as origins of the badass system. Chapter 482 Engagement Gala. Olivia sat on the sofa facing Michael. He leaned back, resting his head on his fist. You have nothing to worry about, everything is under control, Claire softly said. Things could have been better if I had tied some loose ends. Michael's face was void of any expression. What's truly going on, sect leader Claire? Tell me everything. His gaze turned colder as Claire found no strength to hide what was going on in Bradford. Besides, he trusted them with the kingdom, so Claire knew that he deserved to know the truth. Letting out a deep sigh of breath, Claire and Olivia began to narrate the events unveiled over the last 3 months. Almost 15 minutes later, they finished their report and expected some kind of reaction from Ghost, who listened to everything showing no emotions at all. They were unable to grasp what he was thinking or what the hell was going on in his head. After hearing Claire and Olivia, Michael realized why he received no reports from Azazel about Bradford. From the outside, Bradford was running as usual. Inside, however, The kingdom was dying little by little, and Claire was the one keeping the kingdom alive using the treasury of the Sunrise sect. According to Claire, the merchant companies who used to trade with Baron Totonk stopped their trading. In addition, the various noble families of Bredia who owned businesses fired the people of Bradford and stopped buying fish and farm products produced in Bradford. In simple words, they blacklisted Bradford. Over the 3 months, Bradford had lost most of the revenue streams. Thus, Claire and Elder Sandra had to access the sect treasury to keep the people from starving to death. If this wasn't enough, the Bredian soldiers had been exerting an absurd amount of tax on anyone who comes to Bradford through their borders, as well as arrested Bradford citizens for phony crimes that they never committed. Because of this, new merchants and nobles stopped visiting Bradford, and Bradford citizens quit traveling to Bredia for work. Even Haddis' income was affected by Bredia. Michael doubted that the nobles of Bredia visited Hades much over the past 3 months. Claire also mentioned that some of the prominent noble families left Bradford, and those who worked for them lost their jobs, which enlarged the hole of unemployment. Altogether put a major strain on Bradford. If it wasn't for Claire's deals with lesser nobles and new merchants, the kingdom's economy would have completely collapsed. However, Claire and Sandra weren't magicians who could perform a miracle and fix the economy right away. Without new revenue streams and new jobs for the Bradford citizens, the kingdom would sink eventually. Olivia, Michael turned his gaze to Olivia, your father has contacts in Bredia, right? Olivia nodded, but she had no idea why was he asking. Do me a favor and ask him if King Bredia has anything to do with the situation on Bradford. Instead of Olivia, Michael heard another voice. He turned his head and saw Ricky and Daniel entering the hall. Michael was impressed by their transformation. Both dressed in black robes and had neatly pruned shoulder-length hair. Their hair looked glossy, just like their skin. The latest underscores are on the website. Finally, they both reached an adequate cultivation level. Due to his X-ray eye, he could see Ricky was at core formation level 2, while Daniel had reached level 3 and was just a few months cultivation away from reaching the next level. We have some information regarding that Master Ghost. Ricky and Daniel bent their backs and bowed deeply. For them, Ghost was their god. Their adoration towards him was evident by the way they bowed. Sect leader Claire, Lady Olivia, they then bowed towards Olivia and Claire before turning their gaze back at Ghost. We wanted your permission, but you weren't here, Master Ghost, so please forgive us for buying this information from Lord Information. With a flick of his wrist, Daniel took out a silver parchment from his space ring. Claire wasn't surprised as Olivia because she knew they might do something like that. Although Daniel and Ricky took care of things related to the sect too, they were ultimately Ghost's minions. So Claire knew it was not her place to tell them what they could and couldn't do. So you two took initiative, good. I like that. Ricky grinned from ear to ear since it was his idea to buy information from Lord Information regarding Bradford's status using Michael's coins. Daniel was reluctant to take Ghost's coins, but Ricky convinced him Master Ghost liked them to take the initiative. Just like Ricky said, Michael liked what they did. He always wanted his subordinates to act on their own for the betterment of him instead of always looking for his orders and guidance. The parchment contained all of King Bredia's meetings for the last 3 months. After reading the parchments, Michael handed over the parchment to Claire. Sect leader Claire, see if these were the people who revoked their support to Bradford. It was obvious to Michael that King Bredia was the one behind everything. Still, Michael handled the situation calmly rather than resorting to instant violence. Claire laid her eyes on the parchment and in a few moments, she creased her brows. She knew this deep down, yet looking at a solid proof felt weird. Every single one in this list either left the kingdom or stopped dealing with us. All of a sudden Claire said, I don't think we need more proof on King Bredia is the one behind everything. Ghost, don't do anything rash. We can talk this out with him, Claire quickly said, trying to calm him down before the things go south. Even if we know he's the one pulling the strings, we can't prove anything, teacher. This is a delicate situation which has to be dealt with utmost caution, Olivia pitched in, letting Michael know her thoughts. Do you think I am rash and unreasonable? Michael asked the two girls. When he looked at Daniel and Ricky, they immediately shook their heads, wordlessly telling him he was neither. If anyone was unreasonable and rash, it's King Bredia. He was the one who decided to marry his daughter to whoever won the tournament. I won that and I wasn't going to marry that princess even though I could have said yes. No one would have bat an eye. Ricky and Daniel bobbed their heads up and down agreeing with Michael. The latest ____ are on _ the website. I was perfectly reasonable and if not, magnanimous when I rejected the princess. Now Princess Catherine gets to marry her love and King Bredia gets to see his daughter happy, all because of what I did. Olivia agreed with Ghost. She had met hundreds of men in her life and she couldn't find a single one who would have rejected a princess. Despite what the others were thinking, she knew her teacher was a good guy. Otherwise, he would have married her and destroyed her love without batting an eye as most would have. If she was in King Bredia's shoes, she wouldn't have messed with Bradford. All I asked in return is being left alone. Tell me, sect leader Claire, why can't he leave me be? Claire had no answer for him as he turned his head to Daniel and Ricky. When is this engagement gala? In 3 days, right? Yes, Master Ghost, as Ricky said. Michael stood up and so did Olivia and Claire. Ghost, what are you going to do? Asked Claire with a worried face. The last thing they needed was an open war between Bradford and Bredia. Although Bradford had 1/3 of Bredia's army, they were nowhere near to defeating Bredia in an all-out war. Don't you think I should attend the gala as a well-wisher of Bredia and the princess? Claire's heart skipped a beat when she heard him. They all felt a chill running through their spines because his words sounded colder, drenched in killing intent. Ricky, go to Grand Spire Bank in Flamefair and ask Miss Valric to meet me at Hades. Bradford owed Sunrise Sect millions of gold and there were some things Michael wouldn't do even for millions of badass points, and one of those things was being in debt. Thus, he decided to pay the amount Claire gave to Bradford from the sect's treasury. Ghost? Claire tried to stop Ghost from doing whatever he was planning to do, but before she could say anything, he raised his hand. This is something I have to deal with myself. Claire? Michael cast the lightning dash spell and disappeared from the room, leaving a trail of golden light. How strong is he now? Olivia wondered. The pressure Claire felt when he cast the spell was several times stronger than what she felt around her grandfather. Somehow Claire couldn't even think that he had reached the soul-refining stage. Michael didn't stop until he reached Hades. Most of the Rivertown people were going on with their lives when he descended to the doorsteps of Hades. Before many on the streets could notice, Michael entered Hades and saw the restaurant was loaded with people. Except for a few tables reserved for him, elders of the Sunrise Sect, and his subordinates, the rest of the tables were occupied by the nobles and rich from various kingdoms and families. Visits. For the best no_vel_read_ experience, Michael raised many eyebrows as he entered the Hades, especially the girls who stared at him as though they were gonna eat him alive. He made his way to the table reserved for him. It was a curved sofa located at the far end of the hall. It was only a couple of seconds after he sat when he saw Gloria rushing to his table from the back. Master Ghost. Gloria immediately bowed, greeting him with a wide smile. Michael disliked being addressed as His Majesty. Somehow it felt weird for him. Therefore, he ordered everyone to keep addressing him as Master Ghost instead of Your Majesty. Hey Gloria, how are you? Michael asked with his usual gentle, alluring smile. I am doing wonderful, thanks to you, Master Ghost. Sorry, we didn't expect you. I could have done something special. No need, I just wanted to surprise my favorite manager, Master Ghost. Gloria let out a shy grin as her face reddened slightly. Where is Raylene? In the kitchen? Gloria bobbed her head as Michael expected. I should go tell her you're here. Hearing her, Michael shook his head. No. It seems you guys are so busy. Let her work, I can meet her after we close. This time, Gloria, who was the one, shook her head. No, Master Ghost. If I don't let her know you're here, she will fire me. Please let me inform Lady Raylene, Master Ghost. Michael chuckled, looking at her pleading with puppy eyes. Okay, and I would like a glass of grape juice and special, please. Coming right up, Master Ghost. The nobles who saw the conversation between Gloria and Ghost were pleasantly surprised. Many heard that he was a man of simplicity despite his talents. It was truly stunning to witness his simplicity in person. The latest ___ are on _ the website. Now they knew why the people of Rivertown worship him regardless of the recent hardships they were facing. Chapter 483 The War Between the Pentown and Flamefair. As soon as Gloria went into the kitchen, Raylene rushed out. Her sweaty face had a wide, bright smile. Master Ghost, she tried to kneel down but Michael stopped her by grabbing her shoulder. Sit down. Michael had to apply some pressure to make her sit down beside him. Her rosy face was completely drenched in sweat. Michael could notice the redness in her hand, which was a mark of her hard work. I hope everything's going well, Raylene. Yes, Master Ghost. You have nothing to worry about. Me and Gloria even thinking about opening another branch in Royal Land. Her words really made Michael happy. It felt great for him to see his subordinates finally making up good decisions themselves without his guidance. For him, it was like seeing the birdlings spreading their wings and flying away from the nest on their own. Raylene leaned back on the sofa facing Michael's eyes. We are just waiting for Lady Elia to come out of her seclusion and clear up some of the financial sides of things. Master Ghost, is she still in her seclusion? Michael nodded. But go ahead. I'm meeting someone handling my account in Grand Spire. I will transfer the coins to your account. About that, Master Ghost. Raylene scratched her temples. I took the liberty of opening a separate account in Grand Spire for the restaurant and I've been depositing the profits into that account. Look at my Raylene, all grown up. Michael laughed as he ruffled her head as though she was a little girl to see her giggle. Any problems transferring the coins to the bank? Asked Michael. Considering Raylene would have to physically bring the coins to the bank and deposit them into the account, she was vulnerable to getting attacked by thieves or bandits. Good thing Michael let Lord Malin handle the security side since the Bradley family specialized in providing security. When I was opening the account, Lord Malin himself came here to escort me to the bank. After that, Raylene leaned closer to Michael. Visits. For the best no_vel_ing experience, once a week, he will send a courier here. Only I know how to identify the courier, she whispered to him. So you put the coins in a space ring and send the courier to the bank? Yes, Raylene nodded. The courier will make the deposit on my behalf and another courier will bring me the receipt. Michael nodded, although he could tell this process was still not 100% foolproof. For instance, the courier could steal the space ring and find someone to break the seal for him. It was difficult to break open a space ring, but it was not impossible. If an amateur runemaster like Wilkes could do it, any run-of-the-mill runemaster might possess the skill to do it better. Since he wouldn't be here always to transfer the coins to the system storage, he had to accept the risks. In case something happened to the space ring after Raylene handed it over to the courier, it was Lord Malin's responsibility to get the space ring safely to the bank. Hence, Michael didn't need to worry about it much. Besides, having a separate account that Raylene could access anytime enabled her to function independently without having to wait for him or Gaia. Everything is coming into a shape nicely, Michael said to himself, seeing his business empire starting to roll on its own. Every component in the chain had been working without depending on him much, and he wanted to be like that. You said you chose Royal Land, but why not Kethin? Isn't it a better choice since it's closer to Bradford than Royal Land? Michael asked curiously. For him, Kethin seemed like a better choice. As he said, it was closer to Bradford, so traveling wouldn't take as much toll on Raylene as it would if she was to travel between Bradford and Royal Land. The ongoing war will affect the business, Master Ghost. What war? Michael creased his brows. Only then Raylene realized that Ghost was in Mazeroth when the war began. She had a look of realization as she answered. A week after you left, Flamefair waged war on Pentown, and since the latter is an ally to Icefair, they extended their support to Pentown. So the three dukedoms are at their throat for the last 3 months. Michael knew Flamefair Duke had been conducting human experiments in secrecy. Now that he heard he waged a sudden war on not only one but 2 dukedoms, Michael Duke Avon of Flamefair is planning something big. Michael felt like there was a lot on his plate all of a sudden. And what about the Rosegate Dukedom? Who are they supporting in this war? The last time I heard, they remained neutral, said Raylene. She then smacked herself on the forehead. The latest _AP_SODIs are on _this website. Look at me, keeping your table empty. Just wait a minute, Master Ghost. I'll go bring your food. We will talk later. Now focus on your work. I won't keep you here. You're busy. Raylene couldn't disagree with him after seeing the crowd. Hence, she bowed and ran into the kitchen. Shit, I forgot to ask her about Cindy. After a couple of minutes, Gloria brought a large glass of sparkling purple juice and grilled lobster tails with lemon and her butter. Just the fragrance alone made Michael's mouth salivate. He didn't realize how much he missed Raylene's cooking until he experienced the sensation again. This was an impressively plated dish that showed Raylene's mastery of cooking. She could not only make delicious meals but could also plate the dish in a way that feasted the eyes. Michael immediately started to dig in. The tasty meals put a smile on his face as he continued to eat. Gloria didn't stick around to watch him eat, as it would be weird. So Michael ate alone while missing Gaia. He was halfway done when Ricky entered Hades with the elven girl Michael met in Grand Spire Bank, Vanya Valric. Master Ghost, Ricky bowed. Miss Valric, please take a seat. The elf nodded before comfortably sitting on the sofa facing Michael. You can go, Ricky. As much as Ricky wanted to fill his belly, he had so many things to take care of. So he bowed and left Hades. Thank you for meeting me, Miss Valric. Of course, Master Ghost, you are one of our VIP customers after all. You deserve the best. What can I do for you, Master Ghost? Before answering Valric, Michael looked at one of the waitresses as she came running to his table. First, you have to order something for yourself, Miss Valric. On the house, I insist. Vanya was different from the elves he met in Mazeroth. He knew sometimes it might just be an act because of her profession, but something told him that she wasn't like those arrogant elves. I will have what Master Ghost is having. Vanya ordered what Michael did and sent the waitress back into the kitchen. Michael then took out a piece of paper and a quill from the space ring and wrote a few numbers. The latest ____ are on _ the website. Miss Valric, transfer this amount from my account to this one. Michael slid the piece of paper to Valric. Her brows slightly arched up. This much? The transaction he was about to make wasn't 100 or 1,000, it was a whopping 29 million gold coins. His heart bled as it was more than half of his 3-month earnings. He blamed King Breedia for it and wanted to make that king pay for what he did. Can you do that now? Yes, I just need a few things from you, but I can do it right now. With a flick of her wrist, Vanya took out a purple cube that contained an orb of bright light within. The cube was the size of a Rubik's cube. Michael noticed her drawing a few symbols on the cube. Just place your hand on the cube, Master Ghost. Michael did as he was told. A few seconds later, he felt a little sting on his finger as he noticed a drop of his blood running into the cube. Done, Valric said. The simplicity and ease of depositing or transferring an amount from one account to another surprised him. If he had wanted to withdraw the coins, he would have had to go through so many loops and arrays just like the banks on Earth. You have this amount remaining in your account. Valric wrote a number on the same piece of paper Michael gave her and slid it towards him. 25 million, it's enough for me to upgrade the system, Michael said to himself. Of course, he had to withdraw the coins to convert them into badass points using the banker function. At the current level of banker function, he could convert 20 million coins into 800,000 badass points. The next upgrade would cost him 600,000. He could use the remaining amount to upgrade one of his skills. At least that was what he planned to do before he knew about the auction in R. Transfer this amount to Hades' account. As expected, Valric knew about the account Raylene opened. Hence, she didn't need the number. She repeated the process and transferred 2 million into Hades' account, which could be used to open up another branch of Hades in Royal Land. Miss Valric, do you happen to know anything about the Aqua auction? Yes. Is Master Ghost planning to attend? It depends on whether the amount in my account is sufficient or not. Michael stared at Valric as she realized that he was expecting her to tell him if it's enough or not. He was a VIP customer and she had to prioritize keeping him as happy as possible. Because of that, she sugar-coated her next words. If you manage to get yourself a token, you can bid for the items in the first round visits. For the best no___G experience, Michael expected this. Her words clearly indicated that he was poor to bid for the items that would appear in the later stages of the auction. The items that would appear in the beginning stages of the auction were just ordinary items. He very well knew that. What if I start an auction house myself? A thought appeared in his mind. For now, he shelved the idea in the corner of his mind. Chapter 484 Trial of Peyton. In the capital town of Kingdom Draddle, a grandeur castle stood tall. 14 thick, square towers reaching for the sky were scattered in a seemingly random pattern, but were built for an ideal defense and were connected by high, narrow walls made of emerald green stone. Grand windows were scattered generously around the walls in seemingly perfect symmetry, along with asymmetric crenellations for archers and artillery. A great gate with giant metal doors, a drawbridge, and a moat guarded the only easy way across the river. Well-kept gardens with fragrant flowers, gorgeous trees, and many bushes decorated the outside of the castle. This castle had clearly stood the test of time. The rocks of the walls were aged and vines and plants grew inside the cracks, but this castle would last for ages to come. Currently, several carriages were going in and out of the castle, and Peyton was in one of those carriages. The Guardian Guild had several headquarters sprinkled throughout the world, and this castle was the headquarters of the Elon continent. This was where they dealt with everything related to the Elon continent. Peyton remained silent throughout her journey from the southern continent to her manor to the castle. The memories of Alpha's guardian abandoning her for Sabrina kept flashing across her mind. She could not stop it. Her blood was boiling in rage. Not in a million years did she think she would be betrayed by the Guardian Guild, especially by the Alpha Guardian whom Peyton worshipped as a god. To this moment she had a hard time believing she was saved by the Dark Lord. After seeing the images he showed her, she didn't think the Guardians would have ever looked for her. Deep down she knew if it wasn't for the Dark Lord, she would still be getting tortured by the vampires. Unlike what one would expect, no one stopped the carriages to search them. There were countless runes and arrays placed all around the castle that protected the castle from intruders and enemies. When a guardian was initiated into the guild, they would receive a mark. If anyone tried to enter the castle without bearing this mark, they would be immediately incapacitated and arrested by the elite soldiers patrolling the castle grounds. Since Peyton had the mark, she entered the castle grounds without any hiccups. In addition, there was an array designed by a 6-star runemaster that suppressed all the Guardians' cultivation levels to the body-strengthening stage except for a selected few, including Peyton. However, at the moment she felt her cultivation was being suppressed to body-strengthening stage. Peyton creased her brows. For a second she thought it was some kind of mistake, but then, she remembered the words of the 3-headed creatures she saw with the Dark Lord. The moment you return to your guild, they will treat you more like a traitor than a survivor. The carriage gradually came to a halt. Peyton remained in the carriage for a few moments, trying to calm her mind. Then, she stepped out of the carriage onto the courtyard. The courtyard was decorated with a large fountain in the center and neatly pruned gardens. The paved ground was clean and spotless without a speck of dust. As soon as she stepped out of the carriage, the guardians relaxing in the courtyard turned their gazes at her. The smiles on their faces got replaced by a cold look. Ignoring all their looks, Peyton made her way into the castle. A giant chandelier hanging from the ceiling lit the hall with its bright silver light. The marble ground and pure white walls gave the interior a majestic charm. At the moment, numerous guardians were going with their work, and several noticed Peyton. Just like those guardians outside, all of them had a cold look on their faces. Visits. For a better user experience, Peyton. From the crowd, Peyton heard someone calling her. She turned in the direction of the voice to see Zanali, her best friend, running towards her. Peyton, Zanali pulled Peyton close, hugging her tight. Thank the gods you're all right. She squeezed Peyton, refusing to let her go. At least someone is glad to see me, Peyton expressed her thoughts. Zanali finally released Peyton from the hug. Let's go to my quarters and talk. Your quarters? Peyton frowned. Before Zanali could answer Peyton, she asked another question. What happened to my quarters? Zanali avoided eye contact while wringing her hands. Well, talk about that. Come on. Zanali grabbed Peyton by her hand before dragging her towards a polished door made of white wood. Peyton's quarters was just a couple of doors away from Zanalis. When she saw her quarters, the door had no nameplate as it used to have. Zanali opened the door to reveal a spacious room with fancy sofas and tables. The floor was wood, not marble like outside. The walls were painted and decorated with a crimson-red wallpaper border. The room was lit by the chandelier and the several orbs attached to the walls. The room was done in a floral theme in light muted colors and overall had an elegant look. Among the first things Peyton noticed walking in was a portrait of a graceful red-haired woman sitting on a throne. She had a resemblance to Zanali, which indicated to Peyton that she was Zanali's mother. Zanali and Peyton sat on the cushioned sofa as Zanali began to brew them a cup of tea. "I never lost faith in you, Peyton. I knew you would return," Zanali said, giving the cup and saucer to Peyton. "Where is Sabrina?" Tiriana and the Hunter Guardians kept everything hush-hush. "But I heard your team disappeared from the safe horse without a trace." Normally Peyton included Zanali in all of her teams, but due to Zanali having to leave for Nagaland, she couldn't be a part of Operation Desert Eagle. But everyone, including Tiriana and Tanulia, thought Peyton recruited Sabrina. In truth, Zanali was the one who recommended Peyton take Sabrina in her stead. "I saw the way everyone looked at me. What's happening here, Zanali?" Zanali sighed as she placed her hand atop Peyton's. She tried to console her by gently squeezing her hand. "Visits. For the best experience, those idiots are thinking you led Sabrina into a trap because..." "Because what?" Peyton furrowed her brows. "Because the higher-ups promoted Noah to captain instead of you." Peyton clenched her. The anger within her exploded like a volcano. Her eyes turned red due to the veins popping out. "They think I led my team into a trap and killed them because I didn't get a promotion," Peyton asked, gritting her teeth. "They are idiots, Peyton. Don't give a damn about what they think. They all like Noah and that's why they've been acting like this. When you tell the truth in the hearing, they will realize how wrong they are." Her words were supposed to calm Peyton down, but instead, when Peyton heard her, her rage multiplied by several folds. Zanali noticed Peyton's hands trembling. "Yeah, everyone like Noah who spends most of his time doing God knows what, but they don't give a shit about those who risk our lives for the guild and its principles." Ching. Peyton crushed the teacup before standing up. "Even you asked me where is Sabrina, not what happened to you." Peyton's voice stuttered. She didn't raise her voice even though she was raging in anger. To be honest, she couldn't raise her voice. The mix of emotions she was feeling right now suppressed her voice. "Peyton, it's Dash. Tell me, Zanali, the Desert Eagle operation is supposed to be off the books. How did the rest of them know about it? How did they know who was in the team?" Peyton's eyes welled up behind her glasses. "The Alpha Guardian," she asked, "disclosed the operation and asked everyone to look for you." Peyton let out a miserable smile as she shook her head. "Not me, Zanali, Sabrina. They asked the Guardians to look for Sabrina." Zanali couldn't rebuke because what Peyton said was the truth. The Alpha Guardians specifically told them to search for Sabrina discreetly. As far as the Winston family was concerned, Sabrina was in seclusion at Holy Trident Academy. Since Noah left Elon searching for something, he had no idea about his sister's disappearance. The latest underscores are on website. "Do you know what they did to me?" Just as Peyton was about to reveal what happened to her in the southern continent, someone knocked on the door. "Who is there?" asked Zanali. "The hearing is going to begin soon." Peyton didn't need any explanation. She knew the hearing was for her because she expected this to happen. The Dark Lord and the three-headed creature were right. Regardless of what she wanted to believe, everything they told her had been the truth. She started to think the Dark Lord may have been right all along. If she was the Alpha Guardian, she wouldn't have played favorites. Peyton would have sent teams to look for everyone. Moreover, she wouldn't have let the Guardians brand a loyal Guardian a traitor until she received all the facts. "Peyton," Zanali stood up. As a best friend, she thought she knew what was going on in Peyton's mind. However, in truth, Zanali couldn't even grasp the amount of rage and sadness in Peyton's heart. The feeling of realizing that the Dark Lord, who Peyton thought was the ultimate evil, was in right rather than the guild she believed in her whole life, crushed her heart. "Let's get this over with. Lead the way." When Zanali opened the door, they were welcomed by the silver-armored soldiers. Each soldier was armored to the teeth. Despite the look, the armor was as light as a feather but strong enough to withstand an immense amount of attacks. These were the elites of the castle, the soul-refining stage warriors. "Miss Peyton, follow us." The Guardians were staring at them as the soldiers escorted Peyton to the upper floor through the stairs, followed by Zanali. Peyton felt like a prisoner but uttered no word. Eventually, Peyton reached a giant metal door. The soldiers pushed open the door to reveal a spacious empty hall where there was nothing but a table located on a stage elevated from the floor and several thrones behind this long oak table. After she stepped into the hall, the soldiers closed the door behind her. She slowly made her way to the center of the hall. Soon, a man dressed in red robes appeared below the table. The hearing about the Desert Eagle operation will begin shortly. As Peyton was waiting for the higher-ups to appear, Michael was seeing everything through the spider he placed on Peyton. The old spider he made would have been destroyed by the arrays when Peyron entered the castle. Thanks to Eladir, his new spiders were undetectable. Although they had the main weakness, the spider on Peyton was enough for Michael to witness the trial which was about to make Guardians a deadly enemy. The latest __episodes are on _ website. Chapter 485 Upgrading the system. Peyton waited for the higher-ups to take their seats patiently. She seemed calm but she was shaking inside. This was her first hearing. Guardian Captain Gerard Atkins, the man in the red robes announced as a study man with dark shiny hair, took his seat. Just like everyone else, he too had a cold look on his face. "You too believe that, Captain?" Peyton stuttered. "Save it for the hearing." The man coldly shut out Peyton, second in command of the Alpha Guardian of Hunter Guardians, Tiriana Velrin. Followed by the man's announcement, Tiriana appeared beside the chair and took her seat. Alpha Guardian of Hunter Guardians, Tenulia Velrin. Tenulia, the Alpha Guardian, teleported beside the seat in the middle of the table. Peyton subconsciously bowed as she was used to. She didn't even nod. In fact, she didn't even look Peyton in the eyes. After Tenulia, only one seat remained. Peyton wondered who was going to come until he got her answer, Guardian Captain Zanali Harthill. As soon as Peyton heard the man, her heart skipped a beat. She was so stunned that her mind went blank. Her lips instantly became dry as she looked up at the stage to see Zanali slowly approaching the empty chair. The last time Peyton talked to Tenulia, she said there was only one Guardian Captain spot remaining. How could they give one spot to two Guardians? It was evident to Peyton the one spot remaining talk was just bullshit. Still, she couldn't believe Zanali and Noah, two of whom she recruited, got promoted instead of her. Looking at this, Michael was laughing aloud. He knew Peyton was on the verge of defecting, but after seeing this, he was utterly positive. Moreover, he really felt bad for Peyton. She deserved better. She put her blood and sweat into the guild, and all she got in return was scorn and negligence. Zanali, Captain, Guardian Captain Zanali, Tiriana coldly corrected Peyton. "Shall we begin?" The trial of Peyton began with Tenulia's words. 3 hours later, Michael was in the pocket dimension attached next to his room in the dark forest. He was not alone, as Azazel and Victor accompanied him. Michael had a workbench near the pole Victor was tied to. He had various tools, torture tools as well as an alchemy apparatus set up on the table. "So Victor, sorry to keep you waiting." Michael pulled up the sack covering Victor's head to see Victor growling. "Doesn't feel great to be tied onto a pole, does it?" asked Michael. Victor couldn't see the amused look on his face because of the mask on his face. He was not in the mood or situation to wonder how the Dark Lord looked behind the mask. "Were you always a vampire, Victor?" Michael asked while sharpening a wooden stake. They say wooden stakes through the heart could kill a vampire instantly. But again, who wouldn't die? The latest _episodes are on _ website. Azazel grinned hearing Michael's joke. After putting the stake down, Michael put several cloves of garlic into a pestle and crushed them into a paste. Victor wanted to respond to his remark with an extremely antagonizing reply, but when he opened his mouth, Michael shoved the garlic paste into his mouth. "Arg!" Victor coughed and coughed and coughed and kept coughing, but unfortunately, it was not due to vampires being allergic to garlic as Michael expected. "Fuck! You crazy bastard!" Victor spat out, cursing Michael. "So no garlic allergy. Only direct sunlight seems to hurt you bloodsuckers. Let me go." Victor squirmed, but he couldn't get himself out of the bonds. "Not until I find all about your kind," as he said. Michael stabbed Victor in the neck with his APD needle and sucked out vampire blood from him. Victor saw the Dark Lord pouring his blood into a vial. "What? What tray you gonna do? Victor stuttered. I forgot you have regeneration. Michael put the vial on the table before slashing Victor's chest with the hidden blade. This time, Michael collected the blood in a bowl. Son of, when the cut closed up, he swung the hidden blade again, opening another wound. Michael repeated this process until Victor's body turned paler than it was. I need a tissue sample. Victor was breathing heavily. His heart skipped a beat when he heard the Dark Lord. Victor used all his remaining strength to get out of the bond. Looking at the hidden blade on his wrist, he knew the Dark Lord was going to cut him again like a pig. His struggle was halted by a flick of the butler who stood a couple of meters away from him. Victor couldn't even move a muscle. He felt as though he was being clutched by an invisible hand. Like cutting slices of meat, Michael cut the flesh out of various parts of Victor's body. Michael bought special boxes from the system to store to keep the flesh fresh for future experiments. After seeing Peyton's trial, Michael had a plan for Victor. Victor regenerated all the flesh Michael cut out. Michael was truly surprised by the speed of the regeneration speed. Only the dark flames seemed to stop the regeneration. So if he wanted to kill a vampire, he either had to cut the head off or stab them with a blade covered in the dark flames. Unfortunately, the latter was not efficient as no blade or metal could withstand the heat of dark flames. After fighting with Victor back on the southern continent, Michael had to replace his hidden blade. He turned to the system for a strong enough metal only to know that the current system level was too low. Visits. For the best no_underscore experience. My lord, it's ready, Azazel informed Michael. Well, continue this after I return. Finally, Victor heaved a sigh of relief. He could finally regenerate his blood and cuts and also try to escape the place which seemed like a lush canyon. Reaching his room, Michael activated the runic teleportation and disappeared from the room. In a few minutes, he appeared again in the room. 20 million, he willed the system as a pile of gold coins materialized on the floor. System, convert them into badass points. It's time to upgrade your lazy ass. Took you long enough, host. Activating banker function. The current conversation level, 1,000 gold coins, 40 badass points. 20 million gold coins will be converted into 800,000 badass points. Does the host wish to convert the coins into badass points? Yes. The bright beam of light shot out of Michael, enveloping the stack of coins. The coins slowly began to look ghostly, losing their tangibility until the stack completely disappeared from the room. Conversion successful. The host has received 800,000 badass points. Available badass points 874,000. The next system upgrade will cost the host 600,000 badass points. Does the host wish to upgrade the system to 5.0? The experience cap for each level in the soul refining stage will be reduced by 25% after upgrading the system. Yes, the system began to upgrade itself. It took longer than usual. Meanwhile, Michael went to the workbench in his room and took out several empty parchments to design a new device. Ghost. The door on the other side opened as Vidora flew into the room. Now that their wings had grown a little bigger and wide, they could fly, but not like Nightmare though. Vidora landed on Michael's shoulder. I was thinking, how could the vampires were able to use arch energy inside the void line, and I might have an idea how. Kane said to turn Michael's attention to him. Sarba, tell him. Kane asked Sarba. When you fought Victor, I sensed vaguely familiar energy radiation from him. The latest __sodies are on _the website. Familiar. Michael stopped drawing on the parchment as he put Vidora on the table to look at them directly. Yes, the energy Victor radiated is similar to the Stormville Mountain Crystal. Hearing Sarba words, Michael took out a Stormville Mountain Crystal from his system storage. What if the Hydra sleeping in the Stormville Mountain and the vampires have some connection? Kane asked. I too have the same feeling, Ghost. Ayag opened her mouth. That Hydra is the reason no one is able to use arch energy in the southern continent, right? Then how can these vampires use spells and shit without an issue? What if these vampires were created by the Hydra? Michael couldn't completely deny the possibility that the vampires have some kind of connection with the Hydra. In fact, he too had this question in mind. The unfortunate thing was he didn't dare to bring Victor to the Stormville Mountain. He was already risking himself by mining the crystals where the Hydra was slumbering. If that Hydra chose to come out of its slumber, he didn't think he or anyone in this world could stand in its way. We watched Peyton's trial. Things went just as we guessed. Michael nodded at Iag. We have to turn her now, Ghost, said Kane. The system upgrade is completed. Current system level 5.0. The system sounded in his mind, interrupting their conversation. The host can now have up to 20 subordinates. Michael was waiting for the system to afford more subordinates. Now he could make Peyton as well as Daniel his subordinates. Speaking of Peyton, she could come to the location any day from now, Sarba said. Before we meet Peyton, I still have got some answers from Victor. Vidora saw several herbs and weird-looking objects appearing in his hand. After taking out these alchemy ingredients, Michael conjured the dark flames and threw the ingredients one by one into the flame. What are you making? Asked Iag. The normal truth extracting pills aren't working on Victor. So I'm making my own. That's amazing. If we can make our own potions and pills that make our foes spill out the truth and secrets, we could stay 2 steps ahead of them always. Sarba grinned only to see Michael shake his head. Unfortunately, there aren't any pills and potions that will make people tell their secrets without some kind of side effect or restriction. Visits. For the best experience, what about the one you're making? What kind of side effect does this one have? Asked Iag. Nothing big, he will just die after few hours. Chapter 486. The price for Peyton's loyalty. Absurd. The vampires are just a myth. Peyton, Guardian Captain Gerard slammed the table. How do you explain the mutilated and blood-drained bodies of the team we sent after Victor? Asked Peyton. She was way past the point of being meek and respectful towards Gerard. Don't tell me they are just a myth. They tortured me for weeks. They sucked on me while the Guardians were busy searching for Sabrina, who is not even a Guardian. Tyriana's face turned red. The audacity of Peyton to dare to blame them for her own fault made her blood boil. A girl you recruited despite knowing she was not a Guardian. Gerard raised his voice. We all know if she wasn't Noah's sister, we wouldn't be having this hearing now. For some reason, Peyton didn't let Zanali tell them it was her idea to recruit Sabrina. You said the vampires sucked on you, right? With a raise of her hand, Tanulia brought order to the hall. The others closed their mouth as she looked Peyton in the eyes. Peyton gave a nod as the answer to the Alpha Guardian's question. Tanulia waved her hand, sending a bright beam of light to Peyton. The bright beam of light shot through her, vaporizing her clothes. Peyton's mind went blank and it took her a second to realize she was naked. The others were stunned. They never expected Tanulia to strip Peyton naked. No bite marks. Tanulia tilted her head while Peyton was hiding her privates and her bosom with her hands. She was so furious to the point her tears began to gush out like a flood breaking out of the dam. Her entire body sweated. She wanted to scream and go berserk. Even when the vampires stripped her naked, she didn't feel like this. She never thought she would be shamed by the Guardians. Stop, Alpha Guardian. Zanali couldn't go through the trail after seeing they shame her best friend. She flicked her wrist as a set of robes appeared in her hand. She threw the robes at Peyton, which she used to cover her body. She took a healing potion. That's why there are no marks on her body. I want the alchemist who brewed the potion here. We will continue the trial after 3 days. Meanwhile, Guardian Captain Zanali will take over Peyton's responsibilities. Great. Now you have to go to their castle. Iag rolled her eyes after they all saw how the trial concluded in the mirrors. The latest underscores are on website. Michael sat on the throne resting his head on his fist. Corey. Michael established a connection with his pirate lord subordinate Corey. All the mirrors flickered for a moment before showing Corey's face. She was standing in a room lit with candles where Vidora noticed several maps and crates stacked around the room. My lord, Corey went to her knees when she saw the Dark Lord in the mirror. Rise, Pirate Lord. Corey rose to her feet. I want you to go to look for the merchant ship named Amity in the seas of Maven and stall them for 4 days. But do not board them. If they fired at us, my lord, do I have your permission to fire back? Asked Corey. Yes, but do not sink them. There's someone important to my goal is on board. Consider it done, my lord. Michael closed the connection as Vidora turned their gaze at Michael. Who's on that ship? Asked Iag. Sabrina Winston and a greater vampire, Michael surprised Vidora. Victor told you? Sarba asked as Michael nodded. They are taking Sabrina to find a key. Michael had no idea what this key was supposed to open. All he got from Victor was the key was a pretty big deal to the vampires. As for what this key was supposed to open, Victor didn't know anything. Since the vampires seemed to find the key desperately, Michael wanted to find out more about the key and everything related to it. According to Victor, Sabrina was the only one who could find the key. Hence, they kept her alive instead of ending her life or turning her into a vampire. After she finds the key, it would be a different scenario. In the best-case scenario, they would kill her. In the worst-case scenario, Sabrina would be turned into a living blood bag for the vampires to feast on for eternity. Only if he knew Sabrina is his little sister. Now that he issued his next order to Corey, upgraded the system, and got everything he could from Victor, it was time for him to wait for Peyton. Visits. For the best no_of__G experience, it had been 6 hours since the trial concluded. Michael any second from now on Peyton could decide to meet him. Currently, he could see her crying and breaking everything in her room. She was a mess and looking at her like this, he pitied her. What tray you gonna do with Victor? Iag asked, only to see Michael removing his mask with a grin on his face. The devilish grin grew wider with time because he was happy with the plan he hatched in his mind. Until now, he was always on the defensive against the Guardians. For the first time, he decided to shift gears to the offensive. I am going to hand over Victor to Peyton. They didn't believe her when she said vampires exist. They can't deny it if she brought Victor to them and let his bloodlust loose. He paused for a second to take out an emerald green orb in his hand. This was a superior-grade recording crystal. Several months ago, Peter used the recording orb to record his battle with Michael. It was pretty expensive, but it was worth the price. They will have no choice but to give her a promotion to Guardian Captain or even a higher position as she deserves. Yeah, makes sense, Iag nodded. Obviously the Guardians will try to keep their existence a secret. Michael tossed the orb in the air and caught it. But I'm gonna record everything and send everything to 2 places. Iag grinned widely as she liked the way the plan was going. Tell us where, Sarba asked excitedly, failing to contain his curiosity. First to Nadia Hall, the royal news journalist. Next place is the Holy Church. According to the book Michael bought from Lord Information, the relationship between the Holy Church and the Guardian Guild was a rocky one. The priests hated the Guardians and vice versa. Revealing the existence of the vampires would destroy their deadliest weapon, secrecy. On the other hand, by exposing the Guardians' intention to hide the existence of vampires, he planned to cause chaos among the Guardians as it would put so much political pressure on the Guardians, thus throwing a wrench in their plan to catch him. 1 stone, 2 mangoes, that was Michael's plan. It was not an elaborate and complex plan. Michael always went for the simplest plan instead of making complicated plans. He believed the less complex a plan is, the better. He would have sent an anonymous note to the Winston family that the vampires have Sabrina. But if he had done that, Rowena would have been involved in the search with all the resources of Skyhall. No matter what, he must get the key before the vampires or the Skyhall. Michael still didn't know Noah already had 1 key and he was currently hunting for the arrows forged by the Mazroth founders. Nightfall arrived with a whisper of perfect black that grew into a comforting chorus of stars. At the edge of the Elon continent where the crystal ocean began, Peyton was waiting for the Dark Lord. Her legs were pacing left and right and her mind was just as restless as the sea before her. Visits. For the best no_vel_read_G experience, no matter how hard she tried to make sense out of how they treated her, she couldn't come up with a way to calm her mind. She felt betrayed by the Guardians and that feeling destroyed everything she held for the Guardians. Now all she had for the Guardian Guild was pure hatred. The center of her hatred was none other than Noah Winston. Ever since he came into her life, everything she worked for went out of her hands. Her hatred pushed her to the point she was ready to sell her soul to the devil if she could see the guild crumble into pieces along with Noah. While she was pacing back and forth, she noticed the surrounding area growing darker and darker. Instinctively she looked up at the sky to see the Dark Lord descending to the shore with a man who had his head covered by a sack. The three-headed creature was comfortably sitting on his shoulder. Despite the full moon and the millions of stars in the sky, the beach became dark as though they had all lost their light. "I reckon you've seen the real face of the Guardians, Peyton," Michael asked the moment his feet touched the sand. "Yes, I did," Peyton answered, gritting her teeth. He was glad to see the burning rage in her eyes. He could turn that rage into a weapon against the Guardians. "Are you going to destroy them?" Peyton asked. "The world needs Guardians, Peyton, just not this corrupted guild. I am going to reform them, with your aid." By reform, Michael meant turning the Guardians into his underlings. He would make his trusted subordinates rule the guild, and by doing that, he would subdue the guild under him. If Peyton served him well, she could have the guild for herself. Before knowing about Skyhall, he thought Guardians were his enemies and planned to destroy them. Since it wasn't the case, as the real enemy was revealed to be the Skyhall, Michael knew subduing the Great Eight clans would be the better choice than destroying them. "Your loyalty was misplaced, Peyton. You know this now. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here," Sarba said. "I want that bitch dead. That's my price, Dark Lord. If you can bring me her head, my soul is yours." Her words stunned Michael for a moment. He knew she hates the Alpha Guardians. He didn't think her hate would push her to the point she wants Nulia dead. Peyton's loyalty was crucial to his plans. Only with her, he could destroy the Guardians from within, because that's the only way to dismantle the guild without getting himself killed. He was still not strong enough to openly go against the guild. "She killed innocent people when she raided my ship. It's time she pays her debt with her life." Although it was risky and difficult to assassinate Nulia, it was certainly not impossible for the #1 hitman. He kicked Victor towards Peyton. "Bring him to the guild and prove the Guardians' vampires exist. I'll exonerate you and get the promotion you deserve." As he said, he slowly ascended to the sky. "In 2 weeks, meet me here. I will grant you your wish." He uttered these words before disappearing into the darkness. With his promise to Peyton, the preparation to assassinate Nulia Vauran, the Alpha Guardian of Hunter Guardians, began. Important news. Visit. For a better user experience, Michael will meet Don, MC of Rise of the Legendary Emperor, Draven, MC of Anti-Hero with a symbiote system, and Hunter, MC of Dictator with a badass system, soon. Although you don't need to read those novels, I will recommend you do check them out, especially Ipsis. Dictator with a badass system will be released after Michael meets Hunter. Chapter 487. Yasmin Winston. The next day, Michael was meditating atop the tallest mountain peak in the entire Sunrise sect. The sun bloomed on the horizon, golden petals of sun rays stretching ever outwards into the rich blue. Slowly opening his eyes, Michael breathed in the fresh morning air and listened to the birds chirping around him. He willed the system, retrieving the 2 black swords from the system's storage. The swords were reflecting the golden sun rays. Looking at the smooth surface, one could tell they were damn sharp. Still, Michael increased their sharpness by rubbing the blades against the sharpening stone bought from the system store. "My lord, if I may, can I suggest you something?" Azazel appeared next to Michael. "Go ahead, you should finish the coronation ceremony soon. Your people need to see their king." Azazel was right, as he had never visited Bradford since he became the king. Claire and the elders handled everything. Michael wasn't interested in being king. Nonetheless, he could at least visit the kingdom and his castle. Moreover, he needed to meet his army and commander. "I will meet them." Michael stood up and put on his black full-sleeves shirt and the long black coat. "But first, I have an engagement party to attend." Michael threw the swords in the air, and they landed straight into the sheath on his back, forming an X. Michael prepared to leave the mountain when he saw Ricky flying toward him. Azazel's figure quickly vanished into thin air before Ricky could notice him. "Master Ghost, your carriage is ready." As soon as Ricky landed before him, he bowed and informed Michael. No need for a carriage. Beads of sweat broke out on Ricky's forehead, noticing Michael's current attire. Something told Ricky that Ghost wasn't planning to give his blessing to the princess. Otherwise, he wouldn't be in his battle attire. Have you ever fought a real battle, Ricky? Michael asked, adjusting his tactical fingerless gloves. These gloves helped him grab the swords tighter, thus increasing his sword mastery by a percentage. Michael planned to transform the mountain top into his personal training area. Only, he was too busy to draw the blueprints for all the training pieces of equipment he needed forging. For now, he just swung his arms in a circle a couple of times and cracked his neck and knuckles before approaching Ricky. Only one time, Master Ghost, Ricky answered Michael's question. Tell me about it. Michael put his arm around Ricky's shoulder and asked, the latest _ye_sodies are on _this website. Well, one time when Daniel and I were guarding the gates, a group of hunters came to us chased by a gigantic brown bear. Did you kill it? Ricky embarrassedly scratched the back of his neck. No, it ran away. But not before giving me this. Ricky pulled down his shirt collar a bit to show Michael the deep scar running across his collarbone. Let me rephrase my question. Have you ever fought a human? Ricky shook his head. Thought so. While talking, they arrived at the edge of the mountain. The very next moment, Michael turned around to fall down. Who? Michael shouted like a little kid free falling. Kingdom Breedia was in a festive mood. One could feel happiness in even the darkest corners of the kingdom. King Breedia announced free food, 20 gold coins for each family, and more importantly, a permanent tax reduction by 2% to celebrate his daughter's engagement to Andrews Winston. The people flooded the surrounding castle. They all eagerly waited for the princess and the prince to appear. The vibrancy of the celebration, the energy of the dancing dragons, and the fireworks that make an artistic canvas of the morning sky were enjoyed by all. The citizens showed their joy by painting their faces, carrying banners, offering food to fellow citizens, and shouting slogans appreciating the king and the princess. The castle of Breedia had 4 solid, round towers towering above all and linked with small bridges. The castle walls were made of light gray stone. The engineers who built the castle placed refined windows thinly around the walls in seemingly perfect symmetry, along with symmetric crenellations for archers and artillery. The real beauty came from the surrounding garden and the crystal blue stream running around the castle. The wooden bridge was raised to prevent the citizens from flooding the castle. Only after the engagement would King Breedia lower the bride so the people could enter the castle grounds to see their princess and prince. Since the streets leading to the castle were flooded with cheerful citizens, the nobles and the guests entered the palace through the roof and landed directly in the throne hall. Humble braziers decorated the throne hall, hanging from one side of each of the 8 limestone columns that lit up most of the throne hall and radiated warmth across this hall along with the majestic chandeliers. The illustrations of a kingdom in the sky on the terraced ceiling danced in the flickering light while carved images and statuettes looked down upon the maple floor of this opulent hall. The nobles were standing on the floor blanketed with a coral rug that ran down from the throne and split to encircle the entire hall while matching banners with emblazoned crowns decorated the walls. Between each banner sat a shrine-like ornament covered in candles. A few of them have been lit and, in turn, illuminated the artistic portrayals of Princess Catherine and Andrews Winston below them. The draperies colored the same coral as the banners hid the windows while burnished corners and fancy tassels adorned the curtains. A glorious throne of oak sat atop a tall elevated platform and 5 somewhat plain-looking seats for the Royal Highness family members accompanied the throne. Visits. For the best no__CG experience, His Majesty really outdone himself this time. The place looks gorgeous. Where did His Majesty buy the wine? It's delicious. I heard His Majesty even invited someone close to Empress Era. You kidding me? No, I thought only the kings and queens in Elon continent would attend the ceremony. I don't think King Maxim or King Ports will come. The nobles gossiped while slow dancing to the music played by the orchestra group. Thanks to the soldiers constantly patrolling and monitoring the castle grounds, everything was going smoothly. You're late. At the moment, a lady adorned in a sparkling golden dress entered the castle with a couple of men. The lady who arrived at the castle was Imelda and the one who welcomed her was Natalia, Andrew's mother. Where is everyone? Natalia asked, fiddling with her golden hair nervously. Ethan is still at the battlegrounds. Diana said she will be here tomorrow morning. Imelda said, what about the kids? Where are they? Sabi is still in seclusion, I guess. We received a note from Rowena and Noah. They'll be here with Diana. Natalia heaved a sigh of relief, but when she thought about Sabrina, her smile grew shorter. Can't Sabi just take a break and come here? Imelda shook her head. You know about Sabi, she is working so hard to break through to the core formation stage. She won't miss the marriage, I guarantee you. Imelda knew how much Natalia loved Sabrina. She was the youngest child in the family, so every single one of them loved her dearly. As a result, Natalia was crushed when she heard Sabrina wouldn't come to the ceremony. Visits. For a better user experience, however, what she heard next cheered her up instantly. Do you know who's coming today? Yasmin. Natalia's face immediately brightened as though someone was directing a torchlight to her. Really? Natalia almost bounced in joy. She was so excited. Yes. In fact, she is on her way here. Imelda brightly grinned. Yasmin Winston was Ethan's nephew. Several years ago, she went to AR to hone her skills. There wasn't a sect that didn't invite her to join them. But she rejected them all because she believed getting real experience was more crucial than learning in a sect. Yasmin was the pride of Ethan's younger brother Caden. After what Jacoby did, Caden couldn't look Ethan in his eyes. He was ashamed of his son's plot to assassinate Sabrina and Diana. If Yasmin was there, she would have personally cleaved her brother's head clean off. How can I miss this special day, Auntie? Natalia heard a charming voice as she looked up to see Yasmin gracefully descending from the sky. The girl wore armor set with a rounded helm and a face guard. Attached to the forehead area was a crafted leather ornament piece shaped like a lion's mouth. The shoulders were oval, short, and quite large, decorated with 3 large, curved wooden spikes on each side, lined up from back to front. She removed her helmet to reveal her perfectly sculpted face and her porcelain skin. Every single youngster in the hall turned their gaze to the black-haired girl in battle armor. She wasn't by any means a country-toppling beauty. However, the grace and the aura she radiated rivaled even the most powerful people in Elon. What particularly caught everyone's attention was her armor, which was made of many vertical layers of leather and metal mimicking a dragon's scales. One could not find a single place in her body that wasn't covered by the armor. Yasmin. The 2 ladies dashed at her, and when her feet touched the floor, they hugged her tight. I missed you too so much. Yasmin hugged them back. Too tight. Imelda patted Yasmin's back, barely letting her know her embrace was crushing them. Sorry. Yasmin quickly let them go. She had to slap herself on the face for forgetting how strong she was and how fragile her aunties were. Where are my cousins? Don't tell me they aren't planning a homecoming party for me. Brat, couldn't you have taken off your armor? Is this what you learned from the elves? Imelda playfully twisted Yasmin's ear. Yeah, they've been teaching me so much noble etiquette, Yasmin sarcastically said. The latest understudies are on the website. Bring me to see my soon-to-be prince aunties. Yasmin put one hand around Natalia's neck and the other around Imelda's neck. She didn't give a damn about what the others would think, nor did Natalia and Imelda. As they spoke, Ghost was on his way to giving the couple a gift that no one would forget for years to come. Chapter 488, Instilling the Fear of God in Hearts. Ding. 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 A man in a white coat suit clanked his wine glass with a silver spoon as the chit-chatter immediately calmed down. Following their silence, Yasmin turned her gaze towards the dashing couple walking down the stairs with King Breedia. Who could be so dashing other than the Prince and Princess of Breedia? It was Andrew Winston and Catherine Breedia. Andrew was rocking the suit and looked extremely handsome. He wore a clean shirt and buttoned it up fully to support the bow tie. On top of the shirt, he wore a chic vest with 6 buttons. It had a deep V-line, which caused the vest to line up perfectly with the jacket's V-line. The jacket fitted him like a glove, a tailored glove. It had an intricate rope strike pattern, making it look stylish and graceful. The buttons of his double-breasted jacket were all buttoned up, with the exception of one for playful touch to a classy look. He was wearing pants that copied the style of the jacket, both in color and pattern, and made an ideal combination with his brogue Oxford shoes. To top it all off, he wore a refined belt accompanied by a tie clip and cufflinks. Besides Andrews, Catherine looked like a goddess among mortals. The sparkling dress covered her shoulders halfway, flowing into an elegant jewel neckline. It was a close fit, giving the dress a relaxed yet graceful look, whereas her arms were uncovered entirely. This was a good thing, as her silky skin wasn't something that should be covered up. The dress waist was thin, but it was a comfortable fit. A bow had been wrapped around Catherine's and rested gently on her lower back. Below the waist, the dress fitted snug around her and had a straight style. The dress reached just above her ankles and was slightly longer at the sides. She was wearing T-straps, which went hand in hand with the dress. To top it all off, she wore an ornate necklace and large jeweled earrings. The couple drew all the attention while the king stood aside with a bright face. At that moment, he felt like the happiest man in the whole world. His little girl had grown and would be a lady soon. "Your Majesty, Your Royal Highness, Your Royal Highness," the nobles bowed respectfully. Soon after, Andrews noticed Yasmin among the crowd alongside his mother and auntie. For a moment, he couldn't believe his eyes. Seeing the look on Andrews' face, Catherine led him to his family. "Yasmin," Andrews grinned ear to ear, "visits. For a better user experience, hello Prince, come here." Yasmin embraced him in a tight hug. "Catherine, this is my cousin, Yasmin." Andrews introduced Yasmin to Catherine. "How should I address you?" "Princess, Your Royal Highness?" "Catherine or Kathy." Princess smiled brightly and hugged Yasmin. Soon the two girls began to talk, and Yasmin's adventures immediately hooked Catherine. The gala was lively. Everyone danced, drank, and exchanged pleasantries until a soldier came running to the king. "Your Majesty," said the soldier, breathing heavily with a pale face. He looked as though he had seen a ghost. Since the king was talking to Natalia and Imelda, he stood closer to the Winstons. Thus, the Winstons, including Yasmin, halted her stories and turned her gaze to the soldier. "What?" The king was annoyed by the soldier. So he specifically asked his men not to disturb him for 3 days. For a few moments, the soldier looked reluctant. Then he stepped forward, leaning towards the king. Yasmin and everyone saw the soldier whisper something to King Bredia. As soon as the soldier finished whispering, King Bredia lost all the color on his face. Seeing the sudden change in Bredia's face, Catherine lost her bright smile. "Father, what happened?" she asked with a weakened voice. "Nothing." King Bredia showed the fakest smile there was. But, to be honest, his mind went blank. Then, slowly realizing the consequences of what he had done on impulse and anger was on its way, he shivered. "Carry on, Kathy. He'll be back." Just as the king was about to step forward, a soldier fell from the rooftop. A noble lady screamed, looking at the lifeless eyes of the soldier staring at her. The orchestra players stopped playing. As a result, the lively gala became silent. A few seconds later, another soldier hit the ground, just a few inches away from the previous one. Then another one. Thud. Visits. For a better user experience, another one. Thud. One after another, soldiers rained down from the roof entrance, horrifying everyone. Yasmin's battle instincts kicked in as she stepped in front of Catherine and her aunties, shielding them with her body. Blood was coming out of the fallen soldiers, and soon, they were lying in a pool of their own blood. "Where are the royal guardians?" Yasmin kept calm despite the situation, unlike the rest in the hall. They are the royal guards," Andrew stuttered. After what happened in the tournament, King Bredia and the Winston family spent a large portion of resources to strengthen the royal guards. In addition, they also hired a few level 10 core strengthening stage warriors to guard the king and princess all the time. They hired a soul refining stage mage to oversee the royal guards. The dead bodies of the soldiers rained down in the hall until they formed a mound of bodies. "How strong were they?" Yasmin asked in a relatively quieter voice. "Core strengthening stage level 10, Yasmin creased her brows, hearing Andrews. She was at core strengthening stage 6, thanks to all the potions and pills the elves gave her. To be honest, Yasmin could fight a few level 10 core strengthening royal guards simultaneously and triumph over them easily. However, she knew it would be challenging to kill 20 of them. Thus, it was evident to her that whoever or whatever killed them was far stronger than the royal guards or a group that killed them. Looking closer at the bodies, she noticed a greenness in their skin. They were poisoned, Yasmin mumbled under her breath. As soon as she realized, they all saw a black-robed youngster descending through the roof entry. Immediately, a crossbow materialized in Yasmin's hands as she aimed the bolt at the young man. Except for Yasmin, the Winstons recognized the young man. Master Ghost sent his regards, King Breedia. The young man snickered at King Breedia. The moment King Breedia and Keathern heard the name Ghost, they shuddered. Overwhelming fear and shock clutched their hearts. You killed them? Andrews lost his patience as he stomped the ground. He was trembling in anger. Today was a special day in his life. He never wanted anyone or anything to ruin it. Everyone in the hall was looking at Ricky. Even though the royal guards were no more, the soldiers garrisoned in the capital stormed the hall through the roof entrance, surrounding Ricky and King Breedia. How's my engagement gift, King Breedia? Another calm voice echoed through the hall. They saw Ricky smirking. The first one to turn around was King Breedia. As soon as he turned around, yet again he was startled. One by one, everyone in the hall turned around to see someone else sitting on King Breedia's throne. Visits. For a better user experience, Ghost. Yasmin heard several gasps resounding in the hall. She saw Andrews stepping back subconsciously, and his face immediately became pale while his body trembled. On the other hand, sweat beads broke out on King Breedia's face. Even the soldiers were not an exception as they all looked like King Breedia, sweating and pale. Who is he? Was the question that immediately rose in her head. Yasmin noticed he was sitting on the throne leisurely while blood trickled down through the black swords in his hands. Yasmin had never seen him in her life. He dressed in completely black, just as handsome as Noah, but unlike Noah he looked colder. None of them knew how or when he entered the hall. Everyone was too terrified to notice what was under his feet. Yasmin was one of the few who noticed and recognized it. Sergio. King Breedia uttered a name breaking the silence. That was his name, huh? The next moment, he kicked the black object under his feet. It rolled towards King Breedia and hit the king's feet with a sickening thud. Immediately, Catherine let out a short squeal as the object was head of their personnel guard, Sergio. While everyone was terrified, he raised his sword at the orchestra. Play something cheery. The blood splattered on the instruments, giving the orchestra team chills through their spines. What did I tell you, Breedia? Asked Michael. He didn't bother hiding the killing intent in his voice. Breedia would have been dead several times if a stare could kill one. What you? Breedia stuttered. Despite having numerous soldiers around him, he didn't feel safe at all because he knew Ghost could massacre everyone in the hall. The orchestra team played something cheery dosed with a darker tone, giving the scene a cinematic charm. What you? Cat got your tongue. Michael mocked Breedia as he stood up from the throne. Why are you doing this? Tears rolled out of Catherine's eyes. Ghost, this is too much. Being strong doesn't give you the right to bully the weak, Andrews coldly said. Tell that to your father-in-law. Andrews was stunned by his answer, and when he turned to look at Breedia, he saw the king opening and closing his mouth, struggling to find the right words. They don't know, do they? I don't care what happened between you. You are not ruining this event. Yasmin stepped forward, surprising Michael and the Winstons. Yasmin. Imelda tried to pull Yasmin back, but she simply couldn't. Another girl prodigy of Winston's, typical, Michael thought. Visits. For the best no_vil_G experience, they expected the Guardians to intervene somehow. However, the Guardians were busy trying to save themselves from the PR nightmare Michael threw at them. Yasmin, please. Stay down. I beg you, Imelda begged Yasmin. She knew what Ghost was capable of, what he was really capable of. They had no one to stop him if he decided to kill them. Michael knew this too. That was why he chose today instead of the actual ceremony date, as the prominent guests would arrive only tomorrow. At that time, someone might be strong enough to battle Michael. For instance, Rowena or Noah. But today there was no one to stop him. Chapter 489 Final warning to King Breedia. Michael could see Yasmin's cultivation level. Although she would be considered a heaven-defying prodigy just like the rest of her family, she was still far weaker than Michael. Thus, he didn't mind her. Lightning dash. Michael cast the spell. The next moment, Yasmin saw a bolt of lightning streaking past her. "Father!" When Catherine screamed, they all realized King Breedia had disappeared from where he was standing. Bump. Michael slammed King Breedia against the throne by his neck. "Father! Your Majesty!" The soldiers and King Breedia's family shouted as they rushed forward to save him. Yasmin was the first to fire a crossbow bolt at Michael. The bolt soared through the air like a bullet, only to be caught by Michael easily. Yasmin was startled by his reflex. Just as she was about to knock another bolt in her crossbow, ring of fire, Michael cast another spell as a scorching hot flame surrounded them. A few soldiers stood closer to the ring of fire, leaped back, screaming in agony. "No!" Catherine screamed, seeing Ghost slamming her father against the throne like a rag doll. "Don't hurt him!" She tried to run into the fire, but Andrews held her back by her waist. Still, she squirmed and jerked to reach her father. Looking at Catherine crying, Yasmin closed her eyes, raising her arms. Immediately everyone heard a howling sound of the wind. Everything in the hall trembled. Yasmin wasn't playing. She directly went for the strongest spell in her arsenal. However, she was stopped by Michael. 3 inches. She abruptly opened her eyes when she heard him. "Make sure the spell could reach me before I lower my sword 3 inches. What, 3 inches? Everyone wondered after hearing his words. But they soon got their answer when Michael stabbed King Breedia in the chest. He thrust the sword slowly so King Breedia would feel every bit of pain. "Arg!" King Breedia growled as blood trickled down from the wound, making his white shirt worn beneath the fur coat red. "No!" Catherine's scream echoed through the halls. Visits. For the best no-understanding experience, Ghost stop. Imelda couldn't see Ghost torture the poor girl anymore. She stepped forward, shivering in anger. "Your men arrested a man when he crossed the border after selling his family heirloom." Completely ignoring Imelda, Michael spoke to Breedia. He amplified his voice with arch energy, so everyone heard him loud and clear. "Do you know what happened to the man?" King Breedia kept growling instead of answering Michael. Bang. Michael punched Breedia so hard that King Breedia coughed up blood and his wisdom tooth. "He was beaten to death by your soldiers in prison. Because you ordered your men to raise the taxes and harass Rivertown citizens." Yasmin frowned. She had already stopped casting the spell. But now, she began to see the other side of things. "What did I tell you?" Bang. He punched King Breedia again. "What did I fucking tell you?" While Michael was threatening Breedia, the soldiers tried using water to put out the fire ring. But unfortunately, although the fire was crimson red, it was dosed with dark flames. Hence, they couldn't put out the fire no matter how much water they poured. "I told you to stay the fuck out of my way, didn't I?" Michael stabbed Breedia's legs, nailing him to the throne. "Father!" Catherine kept screaming, but Michael gave no damn about her. Considering Ricky had done his job, he left the throne hall through the roof entry before someone could hold him hostage. "Did you stay out of my way? You told the merchants to stop visiting Bradford." Bang! Michael grabbed King Breedia by his collar and punched him. "You ordered your soldiers to harass my people." King Breedia received another punch to his jaw. "You caused my people their jobs, their livelihood, and their safety." Michael headbutted Breedia as the king's nose broke, producing a sicking crunching sound. Visits. For the best no-understanding experience, does that sound like staying the fuck out of my way? The mages already rushed into the throne hall. "Cast a spell if you want your majesty's head off of his shoulder." After hearing his cold words, the mages didn't dare to cast a spell. So all they could do was stand there and watch Ghost torture their king. "Stop! Please stop!" Andrews and Catherine shouted at him only to be ignored by Michael again. After hearing what he said, Yasmin learned that King Bridia was not wholly blameless. Although she hated seeing her cousin and newly made friend crying, she saw no way of saving King Bridia. She had a feeling that if he wanted to kill Bridia, he would have done it by now. But instead, he was setting an example. He proved to everyone that he could kill even the king if they messed with him. Moreover, he was removing hundreds of potential enemies by torturing King Bridia on his own throne. What he was doing was a show of ultimate dominance. He banged Bridia's head on the throne every time he uttered a word. Ding! Congratulations to the host for successfully being a badass. The reward is 2,000 badass points. Ding! Congratulations to the host for successfully being a badass. The reward is 500 badass points. Ding! Congratulations to the host for successfully being a badass. The reward is 1,500 badass points. The badass points rapidly increased with the system ringing in his head. Michael ignored the notification sounds and focused on venting his anger on Bridia, who caused him millions of gold coins. All for what? Silly revenge. I am pregnant. Catherine shouted as loud as she could. The moment Michael heard her, he stopped banging King Bridia's head against the throne. Kathy, Andrew and everyone turned their gazes towards Catherine, who dropped to her knees. If you let him live, I swear on my child we won't bother you ever again. Catherine held her tummy and begged Michael. Tears gushed out of her eyes as she spoke. Now you made me look like a monster. Michael snarled at the king. That child just saved you from a whole lot of agony, old man. Michael pulled out the sword from Bridia's chest. As soon as he did that, hot blood came pumping out of the wound. You know, if I wanted to end you, I want raise an army, wage a war, sit in a tent, and hope my side wins. I wouldn't do that. Nothing can stop me no matter where you are or how protected you are. If I want you dead, you'll be dead, as simple as that. Those who heard his words agreed with him. He just appeared out of nowhere, killed the royal guards without raising any alarm, and tortured the king on his throne. They knew if he wanted, he could have killed Bridia several times and no one could have stopped him. The latest underscores are on website. Consider this your final warning. I'm giving you a week. Everything you did, undo them. Andrew sighed as he hugged Catherine tight. If you try to do anything funny, just know many children die in the womb along with their mother, King Bridia. Michael whispered to Bridia before pulling out the second sword from his leg. Gradually the fire died down, but the fear in their hearts wasn't. Every single one of them feared Ghost more than they ever did. No one heard what he said lastly to King Bridia. But Yasmin noticed Bridia's change on his bloody face. She could tell whatever Ghost told him made King Bridia terrified. The nobles immediately stepped back and made way for Ghost. They didn't dare to stand in his way. How do you sleep at night? Yasmin coldly said. Like a baby, he just smiled at Yasmin before ascending towards the roof entryway. Then he disappeared from the throne hall, leaving a trail of golden light. The next day the entire Elon continent was in chaos. Olivia was walking down the streets of Rivertown to have her breakfast at Hades when she saw the people murmuring among themselves, looking terrified. Surprisingly, there was a long line of paper boys in the streets. In other kingdoms, orphans and poor children worked for newspaper prints for slave wages. However, they were paid good coins in Bradford to fill their belly and their families. Claire was kind enough to admit all the orphans and the poor into the sect and offer them free cultivation. Because of her act of kindness, Bradford became the first kingdom to have 0 street urchins. Since Michael himself was an orphan, he donated a portion of his income to the well-being of the orphans. But only Claire knew about his donation. New race has been discovered. Vampires or bloodsuckers. Get a copy of the Royal News for 1 gold coin. Guardian Captain Peyton apprehended the first vampire, scandalous Guardian Guild. What else are they trying to hide from the people? The Holy Church condemns the Guardian Guild. King Ghost versus King Bridia. Princess Catherine is pregnant. The young boys and girls were shouting at the people walking on the streets. Give me a copy. Olivia approached a brown-haired girl who was standing on a stack of crates and holding out a newspaper. Lady Olivia. The young girl greeted Olivia with a wide grin. Olivia was surprised to see the girl addressing her by her name. Olivia took out a gold coin and reached it out to the girl. "It's free for you, Lady Olivia." "Enjoy the news." The girl handed over the newspaper to Olivia but shook her head, refusing to take the coin. "Then take this as a tip." The young girl didn't refuse as she took the coin from her hand with an ear-to-ear grin. Olivia wasn't a stranger to the freebies and special treatment she enjoyed in Bradford. Wherever she went, someone always tried to curry favor with her so they could get close to Ghost. Her status as Ghost's disciple overshadowed her position as the teacher at Aragoff. "You're so kind, my lady." The girl bowed. Yeah. Olivia chuckled and walked towards Hades so she could read the newspaper in peace while having a delicious breakfast. Considering she had to leave for Azer tonight for the alchemist competition, she wanted to enjoy Raylene's delicious cooking one last time before leaving with her teacher, Ghost. Visit for the best no_underscore_G experience. Chapter 490. Arriving at the Azer continent in the calm sea, a two-mast ship was sailing under the light of a starry sky with a full moon. Currently, a young man and a young girl leaned on the edge enjoying the peace and quiet. They were none other than Michael and Olivia, who were on their way to the Azer continent. "Take these. I'll help you store less stable potions, and the potions you keep inside won't deteriorate." With a flick of his wrist, Michael took a crate containing 50 newt vials from his space ring. Olivia was pleasantly surprised by the sudden gift. "Are these the newt vials you told me about?" she asked excitedly with wide eyes that sparkled looking at the vials. "Yep, thank you so much, teacher. I didn't quite expect this." The vials brightened her face more than the moon and the stars in the sky did. She held the crate close to her chest. "Thank me by winning this silly competition." As soon as he said that, the smile disappeared from her face. "It's not silly," she pouted, looking as though she was offended by his words. "Relax, I'm just messing with you." Michael pinched her nose playfully. Soon she stopped pouting and giggled. "I'm not competing. My students are. I told you about this, didn't I?" "I don't think so." "Whatever, tell me again." Olivia sighed. "Well, it's simple actually. 2 parts, individual competition and group competition. Each has 3 rounds. First round, participants are given 2 batches of ingredients and asked to concoct a pill using the ingredients. If they fail 2 times, they will be eliminated. It's the judge's task to find whether that pill is an actual pill or just a lump of essence. Sounds simple enough. The second round is a little bit tricky. The participants need to refine a pill or a potion according to the formula they are given. I assume you've yet to reveal the tricky part, visits. For a better user experience, Olivia nodded. The given formula will not be entirely correct. The participants have to find the mistake and correct the formula to succeed. Yet again, sounds simple. For you, teacher, for you. She playfully punched Michael on the shoulder and continued to explain about the competition. The third and final round is kinda freestyle. The participants need to bring their own formula and ingredients to refine the best pill or potion they can. The best with a high purity level wins the competition. As simple as that. "Do you want me to give you a super awesome formula?" Michael asked. At first, she thought he was joking but looked at his rather serious face. She learned she was wrong. "Teacher, are you serious?" "Yep." However, Olivia immediately shook her head. "I want my students to win or lose on their own. Getting the formula from you is a cheat and I don't want to cheat." Michael never thought he would ever feel proud as a teacher. But now he did when he heard Olivia. He wouldn't have thought less of her if she had taken his formula. Instead, however, by rejecting the formula, she made him proud. "Now tell me again, why are we sailing instead of flying or using the portal in your sect?" "Because you need some bonding with the nature, teacher. Sometimes you just outright scare me." Michael was surprised by her words. "Scare you? What did I do?" asked Michael. She quickly put the newt vials in her space ring in case he changed his mind and took them back. Then she placed her hands on her hips and talked like a strict mother. "You literally tortured King Bredia on his throne. I am not saying he's a good man, he's kind of an old asshole actually. But couldn't you have gone softer on him? The man was at his daughter's engagement, for God's sake." He should be grateful I didn't cut him in piece and throw those pieces at the crowd. Olivia felt chills. The cold look in his eyes told her that he was not joking. Visits. For the best no_vel_ed_ng experience, teacher, the last thing we need is a war between human kingdoms. Especially when there's a new, more dangerous race emerged from the shadows. Her voice revealed the fear in her heart. Are you talking about the vampires? Michael asked, pretending to have no idea about them. Yeah. Did you read the papers? They suck our blood, like, she stuttered for a moment, giant mosquitoes. I can't even imagine. Her words revealed to Michael that they still haven't realized the real danger posed by the vampires. Otherwise, she wouldn't have compared the vampires with mosquitoes. Now that the vampires' secrecy had been exposed, she was sure they would be more aggressive and dangerous. I heard the Azer continent is in a messed up state due to all the war. They should have chosen Elon instead. After discussing vampires and the current state of events, Michael commented on the Azer continent. Ever since he arrived in this world, he never got the chance to visit Azer or Ar. However, thanks to the Alchemy Guild invitation, he could finally visit Azer. The competition has always been held in Azer. It's sort of a tradition, and the old alchemists in the guild are pretty sticklers to that tradition. What's the current state of Azer anyways? You have any ideas? Asked Michael to get some knowledge about Azer. Olivia leaned on the wooden edge, looking at the clear blue ocean before them. Zulon and Suvin are still at war with Thusia and Idrizel, where we are going to remain free of war for now. The last time I heard from my father, Thusia was winning the war, which is a good thing for you, isn't it, teacher? Olivia wasn't thrilled about Michael being the leader of the Thusian Alchemy Guild. Most Elon and Azer hated Thusia for waging war on other kingdoms and expanding too aggressively. Because of Thusia, thousands of people had become refugees and lost their livelihood. In fact, Bradford was accepting hundreds of refugees every single day. When you can't beat them, join them, Michael shrugged, pretending he didn't care. However, he was burning with rage. If Michael had the power, he would have decimated Thusia already. But, since it wasn't the case, he could only use them to become stronger. Olivia had no response to him. They talked and lost track of time until the morning. Finally, the sun rose like a flower, gifting its petals to the world. Amid the dancing, the ocean was the blush of scarlet, the warmth of tangerine. Gazing toward the illuminated clouds, still beneath the ethereal glow, Olivia looked up at the marvelous sunrise and felt at home in a way she never had before. Only when the sun completely rose from the horizon did Kingdom Idrizel's outline faintly appear in their sight. Currently, Michael noticed many ships anchoring at the docks while many riding various beasts flew directly into the city without going through the city gates. Teacher, let's go. Olivia had already put on emerald green robes with the Alchemist Guild's emblem on the chest. Is that really necessary? Michael asked, looking at her extra-large robes that swept the ground as she walked. The latest underscores are on website. Yep. She bobbed her head excitedly before leaping out of the ship to land on the dry land. Michael only noticed that most of the people going in and out of the city gates wore the same robes as Olivia. The number of green robes he saw almost gave him a headache. Among these green-dressed people, he looked somewhat strange in his black robes. Still, the soldiers in metal armor guarding the city did not stop them as they entered the city for the first time without giving any coins to the guards. Welcome to the city of Oxshore, Olivia said, grinning from ear to ear. The city of Oxshore was built on the banks of a large natural harbor and was truly a medieval metropolis. Its elegance was matched by the backdrop of a dormant volcano that helped shape the city into what it is today. Michael could not see far because of the buzzing crowd blocking his view. We will look around. Olivia had to raise her voice to get Michael's attention due to the crowd. Michael felt as though he had come to a festival. The city of Oxshore vaguely reminded him of Hawaii with the lush green mountains surrounding them. Any citizen of Oxshore knew that these hills' resources were of great importance. They were also influential in architectural designs as the vast majority of buildings had been built in shapes and with elements of the hills around them. The skyline was spreading with luxurious tall buildings, and even from afar, they managed to display their beauty. For the first time, Michael saw dwarves, elves, orcs, and beastmen overshadow the number of humans in the streets. The several bars, ethnic restaurants, and coffee houses he saw on either side of the street were evident of the multicultural ethnicity of Oxshore. Come on. I need to check out those herbal stores. Olivia dragged Michael by his hand. What? Didn't you get enough herbs from our garden? Michael asked, following her behind. In the entire Elon, Michael had the largest herbal garden. Granted that he lacked varieties like some other herbal gardens, it was still the largest with an abundance of herbs. I still need more. She didn't back off as she dragged him into a store. At the same, a green-robed youngster, a golden-dressed girl, and a raccoon walked out of a two-story building made of marble. Noth the young man and the young girl had silky brown hair. Only the girl's hair was longer in length than the young man's shoulder-length hair. They were neither too striking nor too unattractive. Instead, they looked plain normal except for the talking raccoon sitting atop the young man's shoulder. Damn it. In the future, let's use a portal. My butt hurts sitting on your shoulder. After walking out of the crowded building, the raccoon deeply inhaled a few breaths of fresh air as he cursed softly. Seeing the ugly expression on the raccoon's face, the young man smiled and raised his head. His gaze swept across the streets and could not help but sigh with praise. No wonder Oxshore is one of the richest cities in Azair, the young man said with a smile as he clicked his tongue and let out a sound of admiration. The raccoon was not interested in watching these buildings. Instead, his gaze swept across his surroundings before suddenly asking, "When are we heading back home?" Visits. For a better user experience, half a month from now, the young man said as he stepped onto the crowded streets. Let's first go to the auction house we saw before. It should have some of the things that we need. After which, we will make a trip to the Alchemist Guild. The young man rubbed his chin and answered while smiling, "Yeah, those old farts love to collect all kinds of different precious herbs and ingredients. It may be possible that we'll find something tasty for me to snack on. I am damn hungry." Chapter 491. Meeting someone from Mazeroth. The trio was Noah Winston, Alicia, and the raccoon was the Golden Babaru. They were in Azair to attend the alchemy competition and win the Mystic Blood Orchid. He needed the Mystic Blood Orchid to concoct an ancient pill that would start Golden Babaru's metamorphosis. I heard the Alchemy Guild went all over this time. Any alchemist who has good skills will be a water bottle in the desert. They will recruit them in a flash. Hearing Noah's words, Alicia shook her head slightly. Although getting recruited by the Alchemy Guild is fruitful to some, ultimately it'll limit one's freedom, and if you ask me, it's not really worthwhile. What the shit? Not worthwhile? You heard of Gabriel, right? After hearing Alicia's words, Norvin rolled his eyes, curled his lips, and said, "Alchemy King Gabriel. No one in Azair and Elon doesn't know him." Noah shrugged, laughing faintly. Not only did he know of him, but they almost fought against each other. Tell me about him. What's the big deal? Well, he was the largest black horse in the alchemy competition 30 years ago. No one knew him before that. Ever since he revealed his brilliance in the competition, the previous leader of the Alchemy Guild offered him the position of Guild Elder. Back then when he became the Elder, he was the youngest to hold the position and was a 4-star alchemist, Noah explained to Norvin while navigating through the crowd. After that, with the resources of the guild behind him, he reached 5 stars and became the youngster 5-star alchemist in all of Elon and Azair. He enjoyed unrivaled fame, claiming himself as the Alchemy King Gabriel, but if it were not because of the guild, he would have at least needed 20 more years before reaching the recognition he has currently achieved. Alicia expressed her thoughts. Rumor has he's eyeing for the guild leader position. Noah heard the rumor through the Guardian spies in the Alchemy Guild. In addition, Noah also heard Gabriel was losing his mind over his sudden downgrade to the second best alchemist in the continents. Guild leader position? What's he gonna do about the current leader? Kill him? Norvin chuckled, but his smile froze when he saw Noah's silence. Did you really think we are only here to compete? Noah winked at Norvin. Until now, Norvin thought Noah was here for the Mystic Blood Orchid. However, Now he realized Noah plans to save the current leader of the Alchemy Guild. How do you plan to stop it? You know, the assassination, Alicia whispered, visits. For the best understanding experience, I'll make the plan as I go. It always worked for me, Noah smiled. Despite knowing the assassination plot, he was pretty chill. I still think you should have joined the Alchemy Guild when they asked you to. If you had done that, we would have stopped the plot and gotten the orchid easily. Norvin rolled his eyes and continued to rant. They would have provided you with an endless supply of herbs and ingredients so you could have stayed relaxed and saved the time needed to run all over the place to search for ingredients. The Guardian Guild is awesome, but they don't even have normal orchids. They don't focus on nurturing alchemists. Noah shook his head, listening to Norvin. I don't need Alchemy Guild to reach 5-star level, Norvin. Noah shrugged his shoulders. With Andreas, who was the best of the best, guiding him by his side, he did not doubt reaching not 5 stars but 6 stars. Because of Andreas, he became a young 4-star alchemist from a young man who didn't know anything about alchemy in just a short 5 years. It was also because he was unclear just how difficult it was for ordinary alchemists to raise their ability swiftly. After all, not everyone was as lucky as him. Times like this, I feel like we have to appreciate him, you know. As soon as Alicia heard these words, she clenched her fist while the veins underneath her skin bulged up. Even her eyes turned red in a flash. Do not speak about him in front of me. Noah could feel the air around him getting chillier. Obviously by him, Norvin meant Ghost, who almost destroyed Alicia's family when he revealed Peter was the vigilante in front of half the kingdom. To this day, Peter was tangled in investigations and house arrest by the Guardians. Additionally, the young masters who Peter attacked put several bounties on Peter's head in the Grim Reapers Guild. And 3 Grim Reapers almost succeeded in taking Peter's life. They would have killed him if it wasn't for Noah. You should be pissed too. You know what he did to your cousin. To her surprise, Noah did not say anything, nor did he seem mad at Ghost. In fact, Noah wasn't, because there was no reason for him to be mad at Ghost. If anything, Noah was grateful that Ghost did not kill Andrews even though he had the chance to. Noah warned Andrews and explained what would happen to him. Still, Andrews competed in the competition for Princess Catherine. After knowing what happened in the tournament, Noah respected Ghost. Even with the power of Layla Alden behind him, Andrews couldn't beat Ghost. As far as Noah was concerned, Ghost won the tournament fair and square. Yet because of Catherine's impulse, they pushed Ghost to the point he took away half of their kingdom. As for Peter, Noah completely blamed Peter for everything that happened to him. Peter deserved it, as he had no right to dress up as a vigilante and beat up young masters just to hone his skills. Hey, we have arrived at the auction house. Visits. For the best understanding experience hearing Norvin, Noah's footsteps slowly came to a stop. He raised his head and eyed the huge building and the banner of the single water droplet that appeared at the end of the street. Surprise involuntarily surfaced on his face as he shook his head and sighed. Wow, just a branch looks bigger than many prestigious auction houses belonging to Elon and Azair. Aqua Auction House truly is a giant in the auction business. Both Alicia and Norvin nodded in agreement with his words. They eyed the huge building that was like a bottomless pit, swallowing up the unceasing flow of people. His hands gently inserted into his sleeves as he turned his head around. Let's go in and take a look at what the #1 auction house has to offer. Hopefully, we will be able to find the things that we need. Once he said those words, Noah led the way as they slowly walked to the end of a spacious street paved with blue stone. As they gradually walked into the grandiose Aqua Auction House, Norvin's raccoon brows rose higher and higher. They had to squeeze through the crowd walking before them to reach the auction house, and the word house may be a bit of an understatement as the building looked like a palace. Noah was expressionless as he passed through the crowd. Once he entered the auction house, a layer of light covered him. The noisiness outside seemed to have become isolated. He could tell the phenomenon was due to the arrays around the palace. Norvin's gaze swept everywhere. Immediately, his mouth widened as he eyed the enormous hall that resembled a crystal city. Inside the auction house, Fully armored expressionless guards with Aqua House symbols engraved on their chests patrolled the hall like clockwork. Noah could sense at least 20 sharp gazes sweeping across every part of his body when he entered the hall. It really lives up to its name as the #1 auction house in the world. This manner of extravagance won't come cheap, Noah said, looking around the hall. There were countless crystal counters placed in the large hall. There was an unceasing flow of people staring at the rare items placed on the red cloth inside the counters. The tags under these items stated their prices. However, all the prices of these items were at least 50,000 gold coins. These high prices were sufficient to cause people to gasp in shock. These are the outer sales counters. The things that are sold here are not considered too valuable. The real deal will be upstairs. Norvin licked his lips. Don't forget about the aqua auction next week, which you need a token. Unless, of course, you're planning to be a spectator, Norvin responded to Alicia's words. Quit worrying. I have someone to get me the token visits. For a better user experience, Norvin couldn't help rolling his eyes. Let me guess, a girl? Noah nodded as Norvin knocked him on the head. You are the reason many of us don't get any girls. What shit are you spouting? Alicia silently yelled at Norvin. You're not even a human and no one stopped you from finding yourself a girl monkey. Norvin bore his teeth at Alicia. If it weren't for the patrolling soldiers around them, he would have lunged at her and made a mess out of her neatly braided hair. Come, Noah walked towards the marble stairs leading to the upper floors. He was about to climb the stairs when he saw the hall become entirely silent. Seeing this sudden commotion, it appeared that there was a big shot who had quite a high status walking out from there. He could notice the sudden change in the youngsters' faces. They remained still with slightly open mouths. While looking around the hall, Norvin lost his balance and fell down. Then, he saw a somewhat blue-colored and blurry, lovely, tender figure. Lowering his gaze, Norvin saw a pair of shining blue long boots. The heel of the long boots was slightly sharp as it released waves of clear and sweet-sounding click-clack sounds on the clear and shiny marble ground, like a beautiful musical note. His gaze drifted a little higher to see a pair of long, white, tender feet. Not bad. Norvin whistles, not bothering to hide his pervy look. Still, he was better than some men in the hall whose faces were filled with longing and eyes were sparkling. Gradually lifting his head slightly, his gaze finally seeped through the gap and saw a gorgeous and moving face. Immediately, shock slowly climbed onto his face as he softly muttered, Edith? At the same time, a black-dressed young man who was standing in the corner away from the prying eyes was pleasantly surprised by the girl. Teacher, you know her? Olivia asked. Unfortunately, yeah, Michael replied, and seeing Edith was walking towards Noah, he sighed. Visits. For the best no_vel_ed_g experience, this guy's harem is getting bigger by the day. Chapter 492 Olivia's love interest. As the unmistakable sound of footsteps moved closer, Edith, surrounded by the crowd, finally slowly walked out of it. She was wearing a bright deep sea blue-colored tight dress. The elegant dress was gorgeously and meticulously made, precisely and perfectly outlining the beautiful curves in her body. For many men, she was a stunning creature. Her somewhat shallow smile and pretty face contained an unknown meaning behind it. Her alluring gaze was blankly paused at Noah. Immediately, a shy smile surfaced on her angelic face. Being the focus of the hottest girl in the hall undoubtedly caused everyone to shift their gaze over to Noah. When they eyed the gorgeous girl's extremely rare and strange emotion, some envy toward the young man rose in their hearts without them realizing it. Ignoring those sharp knife-like gazes from his surroundings, Noah smiled at Edith, who was staring at him blankly. His smile was gentle, and the dark pupils were crystal clear as pure water. Although Noah was wearing a mask to change his facial structure, Edith saw through the mask without a problem. Emitting clear footsteps, Edith slowly walked toward Noah. A moment later, she stopped in front of him. Being closer to the man she loves, her face reddened in a flash, and she did not realize she was blushing. Kai, what a pleasant surprise, she smiled, tilting her head. Since Noah was wearing the mask she gave him, She called him by a fake name instead of his real name, which would reveal his identity. And who is this little fella? She lifted her pretty face and greeted Norvin, who climbed onto Noah's shoulder with another smile. Miss Edith, I thought you were in Mazeroth. Noah greeted her back with a smile. Usually he would address her by her name without any honorifics. However, Noah didn't call her Edith in front of all the people who stared at Edith like wolves. After Noah greeted Edith, there were a few moments of awkward silence between them. Neither of them couldn't seem to find a word to continue the conversation. Get a room already. Looking at the interaction between Edith and Noah, Michael rolled his eyes. He was getting annoyed with Noah and Edith. Visits. For the best no_underscoring experience, who is she? Olivia elbowed Michael. I met her in Mazeroth. It seems she too got early holidays like me, Michael quietly said. He and Olivia stood way back from Noah and Edith. Hence the reason why Noah or Edith couldn't see him. He wanted to peacefully spend some time apart from all the Dark Lord stuff. But seeing Noah, Michael felt this trip would not be drama-free. Do not fall in love with that guy. Michael leaned on the wall, folding his arms. Then he warned Olivia before she fell in love with Noah and ended up in his ever-growing harem. What the hell are you talking about? Alra, Michael was surprised. He turned his gaze from Edith to Olivia, who clicked her tongue, realizing she blurted out something she shouldn't have. You playa? Michael poked her cheek with a grin. He got into a playful mood when he heard his student eyed someone. As long as it wasn't Noah, he would be happy for her. Olivia's face flushed red as he struggled to find the words. Ricky. Olivia finally uttered the name, shocking Michael. Ricky? You mean our Ricky? Michael couldn't believe what he had just heard for a few moments. Olivia was a wealthy noble. On the contrary, Ricky was a commoner. As far as Michael learned about this world, marriage between a noble and a commoner was rare. He wondered if Olivia's father and mother would be okay with her decision. I wanted to talk to you about this, teacher. But I didn't get the right time. Olivia's face turned serious, revealing the concern in her heart. Meanwhile, the people were still drooling at Edith instead of going with their life. I didn't get the chance to thank you, Kai. Let me treat you to a meal. I know a really great place nearby. Edith pursed her sleek red lips and placed her hands behind her, leaning her body slightly forward as she faced Noah. Did you come here to buy something? No shit. Norvin rolled his eyes after hearing her words. But, since she was so love-struck, she overlooked the obvious. What star level are you? Asked Edith curiously without even giving Noah the time to answer her previous question. The latest underscores are on _ website. Just lucky enough to reach 4-star. Lucky? For an ordinary person, advancing from a 1-star to 2-star alchemist is impossible without at least 5 to 6 years of time. Yet, you have reached 4-star level in a couple of years. I'm afraid that is not mere luck. Eyeing the young man who revealed something shocking at every instance, Edith sighed helplessly. But soon, another youngster's image emerged in her mind. Noah shook his head and smiled. However, he did not continue to pursue this question. Instead, his gaze swept across the hall, realizing that he and Edith had already become the center of attention. Immediately, he whispered, Are you still the supervisor here? I am afraid so, Edith giggled, ignoring the hundreds of gazes on her. She was quite used to getting such attention. Fortunately, Edith was here alone. If she had come with Victoria, she was sure many youngsters would have fallen to the ground. Can we find a quiet place to talk? Noah scanned the large crowd around him who had their ears lifted vertically and helplessly said, Of course, follow me. Edith smiled, nodding her head. She had just turned around when her gaze suddenly drifted to Alicia, who was behind Noah and leaning against a crystal counter while watching the items in boredom. After hesitating for a moment, she asked, Is she with you? You two need some time alone? Alicia was quite annoyed by how Edith and Noah acted in front of her. Still, she revealed a cold smile to tease Edith. Being teased by Alicia in such a manner, a faint redness swarmed onto Edith's exquisite face. However, It was fortunate that she was extremely good at handling issues with human relations. She gave an immediate sweet smile and said, "Follow me, miss. I hope whenever you're leading us to have something to eat." "I'm starving," Norvin said as his stomach let out a growl. "We have spent a long time hurrying on our journey here." Noah was embarrassed as he smiled at Edith. He wanted to punch Norvin in the face because he knew he made the sound intentionally. "It's okay. Come 1 inch." Edith turned around and slowly walked toward a staircase in one corner of the hall. Her heels stepped on the shiny, clean, blue stone ground surface, emitting a click-clack sound. Her elegant pace caused people to be unable not to fall into a deep longing for her. Suddenly Edith stopped and looked at the far end of the hall. "Something wrong?" Noah asked. "No, it's just nothing. Let's go." Edith could swear she saw a ghost. But what were the odds of meeting him in the Azare continent? She heard he had become the king of Bradford. Hence, she naturally thought she would be busy dealing with the kingdom. But, yet again, he was also a 5-star alchemist, and almost every single alchemist would visit Azare for the competition. Just the thought of him gave her chills. For now, she shoved the thoughts back to the back of her mind and led them upstairs. At the end of the stairs, they saw a golden door flanked by 2 more armored guards. Noticing the trio of man, woman, and a raccoon following behind Edith, the guards eyed each other. According to the rules, people who were not VIP members were usually not allowed to enter. Visits. For the best no_vel_ed_ng experience, however, Edith was currently holding the post of supervisor. Her authority was quite great. At that moment, none of them dared to stop them. Only when the 3 of them were about to enter did a guard have no choice but to bite the bullet and take a step forward. However, before he could speak, Edith gave him a faint glance, which caused him to swallow the words in his throat. He smiled bitterly and stepped back. "They are with me." Edith simply waved off the guards who quickly opened the doors for her. The hall they entered was no different than the downstairs, except there were only 10 or 20 people in the hall. They heard metal boots banging on the stairs just after entering the hall. Following the rumbling of footsteps, a few human figures slowly appeared at the bending corner of the stairs. The man who was leading them was around the same age as Noah. He was tall, lean, mean, and had 2 pointy ears, which indicates his elven race. His somewhat pale white face was clearly a result of overindulgence in sensual pleasures. Although the build of the elf did not appear strong, he was actually a strong person who had just reached the core formation stage level 5. "Shit," Edith mumbled under her breath as soon as she noticed the elf, whose breathing just became slightly erratic. Additionally, he shamelessly rubbed his crotch while walking toward Edith. Her gentle smile vanished and was replaced with a deep frown. "Hee, Edith, this place is where Aqua Clan conducts official business. Other people are not allowed to enter, but what I see here, other people," the elf eyed Noah, Alicia, and Norvin for a second and then grimaced. He didn't bother to hide the disgust and hatred he had towards other races from his pale face. Watching the disgust in Edith's eyes, the young man's face immediately became much gloomier. "They are with me. The rules clearly say I can bring my friends anywhere I want." Edith's cold voice did not give the other party any face. Afterward, Edith turned around and walked away from the elf and his group. The elf's mouth twitched after being ignored by Edith in front of his subordinates. This was especially so when Edith grabbed Noah's hand for a second. An unknown jealous flame instantly rose in the elf's eyes. Although Edith was usually full of smiles, warm and friendly, it was not a secret she hated him. To be honest, many girls in the Aqua Clan hated him. Still, they had to put off his harassment and nonsense because of his status in the Aqua Clan. "Gangbang, is that your kink now?" Looking at Edith's back, the elf laughed. Edith was expressionless and kept walking as though she had not heard the obscene words of the elf. However, Norvin noticed her nails had already viciously clawed into her palm. Unlike Edith, Noah didn't remain calm. Instead, he halted his steps before grabbing Edith's hands. Then, he stepped in front of her, shielding her from the elf's disgusting look. Boom. The latest episodes are on _ website. Michael was talking to Olivia about her love life when suddenly something hit the ground after shattering the glass above them. As he looked down on the ground, Michael saw the elf who went upstairs a few minutes ago, twitching and bleeding on the floor. Noah, Michael sighed. Chapter 493 Ghost will be your judge. What the hell? Olivia was startled by the sudden turn of events. She was already tense talking about her future with Michael. Then when the elf shattered the glass wall above her, her heart almost leaped out of her chest. To Michael's surprise, the elf took out a healing potion he had brewed. Michael could recognize the potions he brewed anywhere, anytime. As soon as the elf chugged the healing potion down his throat, the bruises on his face quickly closed up. Although the elf was caught off guard by Noah's sudden attack, the elf sensed the human was stronger than him by the force of his attack. But, unfortunately, Idrizel was in the range of void. Hence, the people lost the ability to see others' cultivation levels. Human trash. Today, even if that bitch wants to protect you, you can forget about leaving the auction house alive, the elf screamed with boiling killing intent and picked himself up from the floor. Then the elf smashed the vial on the ground as the shattered vial joined the hundreds of broken glass pieces on the ground already. The elf immediately waved as a golden circle appeared around him. Seeing this, the people quickly backed off, forming an ample empty space in the hall. However, before the elf could finish casting the spell, an ethereal form of a giant fist appeared out of nowhere and hit him through the golden circle. The punch emitted a soft crack sound and following which, the elf coughed up a mouthful of fresh blood. A millisecond after he coughed up blood, his body was also thrust by the strong and vicious force, resulting in him being violently shot into the wall. Immediately, he spat out another mouthful of fresh blood. His legs knelt on the ground while his body was curled up in pain. Everything happened quickly, from the elf hitting the ground after breaking the glass wall above to being sent flying into the wall. So many didn't even comprehend what just happened. Michael and Olivia halted their conversation to see the fight. Only when the elf hit the ground after colliding with the wall could Edith realize what just happened. Shock and disbelief immediately covered her stunning face. At this moment, the subordinates beside the elf finally recovered from this split-second occurrence. When they eyed their master's miserable state, they were shocked first. Then they immediately surrounded Noah angrily as they unsheathed their weapons. In addition to the elf's guards, the Aqua Clan guards also surrounded Noah since he had just attacked one of their own, and it was their duty to apprehend Noah dead or alive. I order all of you to stand down. Then, seeing the guards surrounding them, Edith pulled herself out of the shock to stomp on the ground. Her domineering shout echoed through the hall. Hearing Edith's shout, a few guards hesitated for a moment. Their master may have the courage to offend Edith, but it did not mean that they also had such courage. What the hell is going on, teacher? Olivia stepped closer to Michael involuntarily. Visit. For a better user experience, pretty girl, 2 young masters. This is called the recipe of shitstorm. Michael leaned on the wall, watching the elf struggling to pick himself up. He quickly put his hand behind as he took out a spider from the system storage to send to crawling to the elf. Since Noah had made an enemy out of the elf, Michael planned to make an ally out of them. Then, if or when the time comes, Michael would be able to use the elf and his family against Noah and his allies. If any of you dare take a step forward, then all of you will be banned from Aqua Clan. Although you are not my subordinates, just think, who are the elders gonna listen, few lowly guards or me? The guards immediately took a step back when they heard Edith. The guards' last need was to get between the young master and Edith. They knew quarrels between them were nothing out of the ordinary. They would fight today and mingle tomorrow, but if they stuck between them, the elders wouldn't think twice before firing them. Hence, most guards let Edith deal with the clan and the elf and stepped back. The rest stared at Edith's anger-filled eyes for a few moments before unwillingly pulling back. Take your master to wherever you came from. Edith coldly ordered with her delicate hand pointed to the entrance. Michael saw the elf finally getting to his feet and drinking another vial of healing potion. Instead of trying to cast another spell, the elf shouted at Edith and Noah, looking at the elf from upstairs. All right, Edith, you got guts. You actually helped an outsider ambush me. Just wait. The elf took a step forward only to stagger. Considering Michael had X-ray eyes, he saw the elf's core formation level 5 cultivation and Noah's core strengthening level 2 cultivation. The power gap between them was enormous. So there was no way the elf could defeat Noah. Quickly the elf's subordinates grabbed him before falling to the ground again. He rubbed off the blood stain from the corner of his mouth and angrily stared at his subordinates. Immediately, his pupils contained a dark coldness and gloominess as he turned toward Noah by Edith's side. His breathing was hurried as he said with a dark voice, "You haven't heard the last of Galen Belay." After leaving those vicious words, the elf maliciously slapped the poor guard by his side and snarled at him, "Fool! Go!" "Great, we made another enemy, hooray," Norvin sighed, laughing bitterly. "I am sorry I got you into trouble, Edith. But I couldn't watch him badmouth you." Edith's heart immediately warmed, hearing his words. She couldn't help smiling and blushing. "I am sorry." Noah gently placed his hand on Edith's shoulder and apologized. In a flash, her rosy face completely turned red. Visits. For the best no__G experience, it's alright. Although Galen will definitely cry and complain to his grandfather, they won't meddle with the problems of youngsters. "We will deal with Galen if he tries anything," Noah assured her with his captivating smile. "That's some next-level cringe shit." Michael shook his head. "Where are my manners? The little guy said he's hungry, right? Come on, follow me." Edith's usual bright smile resurfaced on her face as she walked towards the door at the hall's end. The guards flanking the door pushed open the door for Edith, revealing a spacious room with several bookshelves neatly erected within. There were various different kinds of thick books placed on these bookshelves. Edith passed through them and finally came to the front of a work desk. She then turned around, looking at Noah with a smile. "Have a seat. Now, can you tell me just what you need?" Pointing at the chairs at the side, she asked. They nodded, randomly pulling out a chair and sitting down. Then, after musing for a moment, Nia stared at Edith. Who was that elf? Meanwhile, Norvin reached for the fruit basket on the table and picked up a juicy red apple to munch on. Edith made a detour around the table and sat behind it. Her lips slightly pouted as she said with a smile, "His grandfather is the Aqua clan branch leader in Idrizel. Since King Maxim and Galen's grandfather have been in talks to form an alliance, I have to act as the liaison between them. Usually, he would avoid me when I was with Victoria. But since she's not here, he got cocky." Edith brushed over the black hair of her forehead and said somewhat tiredly. It was evident to Noah that the elf has been troubling her for some time now. "Princess Victoria?" Alicia asked. "You know her?" Alicia nodded at Edith. "Everyone knows her, I guess. Recently I heard she single-handedly destroyed House of Kayla visits. For a better_user experience, sounds like someone I used to know," Norvin casually said, laying on the table. Edith frowned. When she looked at Noah, he just let out a deep breath. "I was immature and impulsive. Those days are behind me now." Noah didn't suddenly have a change of heart about killing. Honestly, he learned the hard way that taking a life should be the last resort. He still had nightmares about the children who lost their parents because of his ruthlessness. So that day when those children looked at him with a confused look in their eyes, wondering why their parents had left them, Noah's heart shattered into pieces. Noticing the sudden pain in Noah's eyes, Edith quickly changed the topic while Alicia gave a cold look to Norvin, wordlessly telling him to shut up. "You don't have to worry about Galen. On the contrary, he should be worried about Victoria. If she knew what happened today, she wouldn't give a damn about the alliance. Instead, she would kick the crap out of Galen. Now I have to think of ways to calm her down when she returns from Mazeroth. Speaking of Mazeroth, have you seen him?" Norvin's curiosity got the better of him. Only after uttering these words did he realize he shouldn't have asked the question in front of Alicia. To everyone's surprise, Edith understood whom he meant by him. "Unfortunately, yeah, we met him." Edith's face turned darker and gloomier as though the light had been drained from her face. "If you're going to compete in the alchemy competition, you will meet him. Because he will be one of the judges. As soon as Alicia heard Edith, she clenched her fist to the point her nails protruded into her soft palm and blood began to trickle down to the ground. I heard what he did, and I'm sorry, Alicia, Edith softly spoke. For a few moments, Alicia didn't respond. I will pay him back in thousands of folds when I get the chance. Visits. For a better user experience. Chapter 494 Saving Olivia from Marrying Noah. Meanwhile, Michael and Olivia went to the corner of the hall and discussed what she planned to do with Ricky. What should I do, teacher? My father will never accept Ricky. Her eyes watered behind the round glasses. Usually, Michael would avoid poking his nose into the love lives of others because 99% of the time, it would backfire. However, since both Ricky and Olivia were an important part of his future plans, he had to intervene because they messed up as Catherine and Andrews did. First, you can drop calling me teacher in private. It feels weird. We are discussing your love life, so I'd say we are long past mentor-disciple relationship, Michael said, leaning on the wall. Looking at his calm demeanor gave Akvia some strength to face her father. This explains why Ricky was acting so weird, weirder than usual. Michael recalled Ricky avoiding eye contact and talking way less than usual after he returned from Amazaroth. Now he realized Ricky was afraid of him loving Olivia, who was Michael's student. He was freaking out to talk to you more than me. He was afraid you would kill him. What? Michael frowned. You do have a pretty violent history of dealing things ghost, she bitterly grinned, feeling weird calling him by his name for the first time. Still, I'm not a freakin' psychopath, Michael sighed. Is there any other reason your father doesn't want you to marry Ricky apart from him being a commoner? Olivia nodded, and what she said next completely stunned Michael. He wants me to marry, she stuttered, struggling to say the next words. Speak. Olivia took a deep breath and mustered enough courage. He wants me to marry Noah Winston. As soon as she said that, Michael stopped leaning on the wall. His body tensed. The last thing he wanted was to have one of his subordinates marry his future archenemy. The latest underscores are on website. Is he crazy? Olivia noticed the sudden change in Ghost's face. If he marries you to Noah, you will just be a +1 in his packs of wives. Despite his hatred for Noah's harem, Michael really cared for Olivia. He didn't want her to become another member of Noah's harem. However, Ricky was a better choice than Noah. Besides, Ricky had all the qualities a man should have. He was hardworking, loyal, and honest. What did you tell him? I said no, obviously. He said Ricky is not noble and not strong enough to protect me. Ghost, what should I do? I can't make Ricky strong like Noah. As far as I know, only you can stand head-to-head with him in your generation. Michael leaned closer to Olivia. Unless he's already at soul-refining stage, he can't stand head-to-head with me. The moment Olivia heard his words, her body went rigid and her eyes opened as wide as they could. So, yes, Michael heard the system awarding him with 5,000 badass points for impressing Olivia. Ignoring the notification, Michael focused on the topic at hand. What if I vouched for Ricky? I can make him stronger and give him a minister position in Bradford. That would make him sort of a noble. Olivia immediately grabbed Michael's hands and squeezed them. You would do that for us? Really? Her eyes sparkled, filled with hope and joy. Visits. For the best experience, why not? Anything to save my favorite disciple from joining a harem. Michael ruffled Olivia's head as though she was a kid. But Ghost, there's a problem. Her smile disappeared. In a flash, the gloomy look she had before resurfaced on her pretty face. My father said Noah said yes to marry me. So he's planning an engagement next month. I just heard this 3 days ago. Michael furrowed his brows. He couldn't believe Noah's audacity to marry another one when he already had so many girls to marry. Yet, deep down, Michael knew that if Olivia told Noah she was in love with someone else, Noah wouldn't force her. After all, Noah was a good guy. Talk to Noah and tell him you're in love with Ricky. He's a nice guy. He will understand. Hell, if you ask him, he might even tell your dad he doesn't want to marry you. Seeing Olivia's forehead forming beads of sweat, Michael gently patted her on the back and led her outside. After joining the crowd on the street, Michael looked over the heads to see a building with the board saying Horith in hanging above a wooden door. I have to find a way to get into their compound. Currently, the Winstons aren't seeing anyone, thanks to the freaking war going on there. Why didn't you attend the engagement ceremony then? All the Winstons would be there. Olivia punched Michael on the shoulder while walking towards the inn. Are you serious? You just messed up King Breedia. I don't think they would ever meet someone close to you, but you're different. Just go and talk to them. They are nice people. I will talk to your dad after we go back. Thank you, Ghost. You're the best. She wrapped her arms around his shoulder and squeezed him. She felt like something heavy was being lifted off of her shoulder. His reassurance gave her confidence. Nothing eventful happened during Michael's visit to the inn. The two ordered salads and hot water and spent some time chatting. Michael gave her some pointers in alchemy. By the time they stepped out of the inn, the streets had become almost unwalkable. After exiting the inn, Michael walked towards the uniquely architectured building in the distance. One thing was obvious to Michael. Whoever built that building took the Alchemy Guild concept too far, as the building looked literally like a giant cauldron built with emeralds. The windows in the building resembled the fire outlets of an alchemy cauldron. At the top of the building was an enormous cover that creeped downwards, covering all the rooms below it. During the walk towards the building, they noticed the main roads in the city already had completely armed night units patrolling in the streets and mages patrolling the skies above. Clearly, this was due to the alchemist competition, which was about to begin. After all, if a commotion were to occur at such a large grand meeting, it would have many different large impacts on the kingdom. Therefore, the guild and the king needed to prevent any such possibilities. Next time, we are flying, Michael twisted Olivia's ears. She was the one who suggested they should walk instead of flying. Because of her suggestion, he almost got squeezed by the crowd. Fortunately, after enduring such a painful walk, they finally reached the guild. I could have such a grand welcome, Michael sighed inside. Then, with both his hands inside his pockets, he slowly climbed the marble steps leading into the building. Michael had just followed the human flow and entered the association when a disturbance occurred not far behind him. Like everyone else, he turned around to see what was happening. Visit. For the best no_underscore experience, the source of the commotion was a carriage made of gold and several engravings of a strange beast on the gold being pulled by 4 snow-white Pegasi. The strange-looking beast, with a blue-colored flame rising from its body, was drawn on the golden carriage. The strange beast was large and had a ferocious appearance, emitting a feeling that would faintly frighten the hearts of those who looked at it. The imperial crest. Several people near him softly muttered. Surrounding the horse carriage, over 10 people wrapped entirely in blue robes accompanying it. Michael's gaze swept across these blue-robed people and his eyes shrunk. They were soul-refining level 4 warriors. Who is this Empress of R? Michael asked himself in surprise as his gaze scanned the carriage. A few moments later, one of the guards slowly opened the door while the other blackguards swiftly formed a steady circle around the carriage. At the same time, numerous gazes that were as sharp as an eagle shot out from the guards, scanning the crowd for threats. Under the protective circle of several soul-refining stage guards, someone extended their smooth, delicate hand from within. The hand gracefully held the handle of the carriage door. Afterward, a beautiful figure slowly walked out and appeared in everyone's sight. Just like most girls in his life, she was damn beautiful. She was wearing a sparkling blue long skirt with golden lines. Under the influence of the imperial family, her exquisite appearance faintly seeped out a noble, imposing presence that was her birthright. A golden belt was worn on her narrow and delicate waist, displaying the small waist vividly and incisively. To his eyes, she appeared to be 16 or 17 years old. She had a perfect hourglass structure, jaw structure, and bubbly eyes with baby fat cheeks to make any man drool over her. Still, she wasn't pretty enough to rival Gaia or Layla. But given time, she might rival them in terms of beauty. Her pretty face contained a smile fit for a girl from the royal family. However, each time her gaze swept across the surroundings, he had a feeling she might not be as ladylike as she seemed. "Do you know who she is?" Michael asked Olivia. Unlike many, Michael did not drool at her. He was mature enough to remain calm. TSK, what a beautiful girl." A wave of cheers immediately erupted from the surrounding crowd watching the young lady. The people swiftly threw over several heated gazes. Although the girl belonged to the royal daily of R, it did not stop the crowd from drooling at her beauty. My guess would be Jennifer Voldegard. I heard that her teacher is the deputy chairman Alred. I think that she must have come here for the competition. No shit, genius. Michael laughed bitterly. While climbing the stairs with her guards, Michael shifted his focus to the nearby conversations. Some well-informed individuals within the crowd identified the young lady. "She seems a little too young to compete, don't you think?" Visits. For the best no_vel_ed_ng experience, she is young, but her alchemy talent is something that even the chairman had praised non-stop. I have heard that half a year ago, she had already reached a 3-star level. Still not at the level of Alchemist Ghost. The guy who just said these words put a smile on Michael's face. He had learned his name had started to spread. Soon, he would be renowned in the Azer continent too. Chapter 495. Becoming the judge. Some of the older middle-aged alchemists who planned to compete avoided direct eye contact with others as they felt embarrassed. Being squeezed into the crowd, Michael heard the conversations of the people around him and learned a few things about Jennifer Voldegard. He once again turned his gaze to Jennifer, who was walking the steps with her guards. Core formation stage and 3-star alchemist level, not bad. Michael thought to himself. Her achievements were quite stunning to the others, but not for Michael. With the wealth of the royal family behind, as long as she possessed the basic talent needed to become an alchemist, they could use their wealth and resources to train her into a 4- or 5-star alchemist with ease. Moreover, from the conversation he heard, Jennifer's talent for alchemy was quite good. Therefore, having such an achievement was within expectations. Under the protection of the guards, Jennifer swaggered through the packed crowd into the building without meeting any obstruction. As Jennifer disappeared from his sight, Michael and Olivia squeezed through, pushing aside the crowd until they finally reached a spacious hall. He eyed the vast hall and exhaled a long breath of air. Then, wiping off the sweat beads on her forehead, Olivia walked toward the Western Hall area as though she had walked there countless times. Unlike the rest of the hall, the western area was blocked by lines of golden pole barricades. Several guards armored from head to toe raised their hands, noticing Olivia and Michael. "Restricted area, not for me. I am one of the judges." Michael flicked his wrist, retrieving the invitation letter from the system storage. Since the guards were wearing metal helmets, he could not see the shock on their faces. The guard before Michael took the invitation letter and opened it up only to get startled after a few moments. "You are Ghost?" "One and only." "Okay, teacher. You deal with this. I have to go register my team over there." Olivia looked over at the crowded southern side of the hall. "Cool. The latest _SODIes are on _'s website." She rushed towards the crowd while the guard eyed Michael from top to bottom. "So young," the guard mumbled under his breath. "Here is my core disciple card. I'll help you confirm my identity." With another flick of his wrist, Michael took out the golden card from the system storage. The guard looked at the name Ghost embossed on the golden card in black. "Please forgive us, my lord." The guard looked at the card and the invitation letter for a moment before stuttering. "It's okay. You guys are just doing your job. Now can I go in?" Yes, my lord. Please, this way." Michael jumped over the golden poles and walked towards the door by himself instead of waiting for the guards to remove the poles. After Michael disappeared through the door, the guards were stunned. "What a nice guy," the guard who checked the invitation letter exclaimed to the other guard. "Yeah. For a 5-star alchemist, he's surprisingly chill. It's a breath of fresh air for a change," the guards conversed. Working as the guards in the Alchemy Guild, they had seen their fair share of talented alchemists, and they all had one thing in common: arrogance. The moment they reached the 3-star level, the alchemists would treat the guards like dirt. But seeing a 5-star alchemist who dethroned alchemy king Gabriel being so humble and modest, they were genuinely surprised. Immediately Michael's status in their hearts reached another level. Passing the guards, Michael walked into the corridor brightly lit with a straight line of chandeliers and slowly climbed up the stairs. The stairs led him to a brightly lit hall tiled with marble stone that reflected everything in the room. The hall had a luxurious feel thanks to all the golden tables, chandeliers radiating gold light, golden windows, and even the sofa set was inlaid with gold lines surrounding a pearl-white cushion. Currently, only a chubby old man with a pointy beard sat on the sofa blowing the cup in his hand. The old man had a mix of white and black hair, no mustache, and wore a green robe. He was calmly sipping the tea when he noticed Michael. "Young man, you must be Ghost," the old man greeted Michael with a grin, "and you must be?" Xian Dawson. Humble 5-star alchemist and one of the grandmasters." The old man reached out to shake Michael's hands. "Ghost," Michael simply said after firmly shaking his hands, "visits. For the best no understanding experience, a man of few words, I presume. You have a long list of achievements than this old man ever had. Well, if I listed out everything, I would look like an arrogant brat." Michael smiled as he leaned back on the sofa. "Quite a crowd out there. What's the format here?" Hearing Michael's question, Audiobook leaned forward and drew a huge rectangle on the tea table's surface as he continued with a smile. "All the alchemists in the competition will be participating simultaneously on a huge platform. We will have a few rounds, and the competition's requirements will gradually become harder. Like in any other competition, we will eliminate many at the end of each round. Whoever can stand out among the cream of the crop will be the final victor. This is the format for both individual and group." "Oh." Michael nodded his head slightly. He could imagine the spectacular view of hundreds or thousands of alchemists raising their flames and refining pills and potions on the same platform while people cheered for them. "Back then, when I first participated, I almost peed myself. Nowadays, the alchemists are too strong both mentally and physically." Xian laughed, appearing to know what Michael was thinking. "Here, as a fellow judge, you should take a look at this name list." Audiobook flicked his wrist, taking out a golden parchment from his space ring. Michael was somewhat curious as he opened the parchment to see the long name list. What surprised Michael was there were names still appearing on the list as he was reading the list. Michael kept reading all the names until his eyes stopped at the name Lilian Icarus. Lilian Icarus. That's Gabriel's successor. Do you know him? As though Xian knew Michael's gaze was locked on Lilian's name, he explained. "I heard about it somewhere." Michael simply brushed it over. But, of course, he couldn't say he read it in the book he bought from Lord Information. Dealing with Lord Information wasn't something one should brag about. Michael then noticed Noah's name appearing on the bottom of the list, and then the name Jennifer Voldegard appeared as Xian began to speak again. "You might be familiar with another Voldegard, right? Lane Voldegard?" Michael nodded. "He's my alchemy teacher in Mazeroth." "So this Jennifer Voldegard, is she a relative?" "It's complicated and it's not my place to explain." Michael was surprised inside but didn't show any expression on his face. "The latest underscores are on website. Have you ever met her?" quickly asked Xian, changing the topic away from Professor Lane. "I have seen her for a moment at the entrance just now." Michael nodded. "Don't look down on that girl. Under the support of the Imperial family, she has so many hidden cards that would dazzle people." Xian smiled and reminded him. She could have all the hidden cards in the world, but he had something she could never have, the system. As he was looking through the name list, the parchment glowed for a moment, and then, the tiny stars appeared beside each name. Most had 2 stars, some had 3, and only a few had 4 stars. As you can see, we have quite a talented roster here. Just counting the 3-star alchemists, there are already 13 of them. So tell me, from one judge to another, who do you think will win the competition? Noah, Michael immediately thought in his mind. There was no doubt in his mind. After all, Noah had a 6-star alchemist grandpa in his ring. It would be funny and embarrassing if Noah didn't win the competition as far as Michael was concerned. "I have no guesses, Lord Xian, since I don't know most of them on the list," A few more sips later, Aishin finished his tea and placed the cup on the table. Young man, you still have one little thing to do before entering the judges' panel. Alchemists from the guild don't have this procedure, but since you're an outsider, it's the rule. I hope you don't mind. Of course not. It makes sense actually. Wonderful. Aishin stood up, smiled, and said, "Follow me." Know that due to security reasons, some participants might be in the same hall we are going to. Cool. Michael nodded his head, stood up, and followed Aishin. The two of them walked out of the room and walked along a quiet corridor for a short while. Once they were at the end, they pushed open a door by the side, entering the hall that looked the exact replica of the one they came from. Everything looked the same except there were some people in the room. One of the groups in the hall was Jennifer's group. The soul refining stage guards surrounded her while she was gracefully enjoying her cup of tea. His gaze rotated again until it stopped on a handsome young man conversing with a few young alchemists. He was adorned in emerald green robes with many shiny stones inlaid within. His white hair flew naturally over his shoulder. Among all the youngsters in the room, only he and Jennifer had a striking look to draw Michael's attention. Visits. For the best no_underscoring experience, hearing the sound of the door opening, everyone in the hall who was whispering privately ceased their conversations. Instead, their gaze turned toward the door. When they saw Michael enter, they were all momentarily stunned by his dashing look because only Michael was dressed in full black and had physique like no one else in the room. For a few moments, Jennifer stared at him without batting an eye. However, she quickly regained her composure and moved her gaze away from him. While following Aishin, Michael could sense the young man's gaze on him. By the way, the young man creased his brows when he entered the hall. Michael guessed he might be Gabriel's successor, Leylon Icarus. Chapter 496 The Number 1 Alchemist? Took you long enough, Aishin. As soon as Michael and Aishin came to a table containing apparatus setup and many alchemy ingredients, a cheery voice resounded in the hall. Following the voice, everyone, including Michael, turned around to see a tall old man with full long white hair and a beard strolling towards them. His golden robes swept the floor beneath him as he approached Aishin and Michael with a wide grin on his lively face. Ghost, this is the deputy chairman of the guild, Alred Sterling. Aidivin introduced the old man to Ghost. Michael moved his eyes slightly to see Jennifer standing instead of sitting on the couch. Deputy Chairman Alred. Michael shook his hands while some of the ignorant youngsters, not knowing the number 1 alchemist in the Elon and Azair, gawked at Michael bewildered. One of those who had no idea about Michael was Jennifer. It's a pleasure to meet you, Ghost. Michael's words caused a quiet commotion among the youngsters. Even Jennifer raised her brows. Then, instead of standing still, she slowly walked toward Michael, but not close enough to get the Grandmaster's attention. Likewise, Deputy Chairman Alred. Grandmaster Alred would do just fine. Alred shook Michael's hands with a smile, then, their focus turned to the table behind Michael. Everyone, please gather around us, Aidivin waved at the youngsters. Then, in a few blinks of an eye, all the youngsters and their guards formed a circle around the table. Michael guessed what was about to happen and snickered inside, looking at the unfairness. So the rich and powerful would get an opportunity to see him refine pills and potions closely while the rest wait in line outside. This was so unfair. Still, Michael didn't utter anything. Compared to the unfairness, the badass points he was about to receive alleviated his mood. Has Grandmaster Aishin explained why we are doing this, Ghost? Asked Alred as Michael nodded. Although it's a rule, we put together something special just to witness your heaven-defying talent. Think of it as a tutelage for old bones like us. Best source of knowledge is experience, Grandmasters. So you too are full of knowledge whom I can learn many new things from. Michael chose to be humble because if he learned one thing from Mazarorth, it was never to underestimate anyone. Professor Lane taught him that lesson by outsmarting him every step of the way. Besides, having a system didn't mean he had to be an arrogant young master. You're calling us old, aren't you? Aishin's words made everyone burst into laughter. Everyone laughed and made the atmosphere cheery and lively except for one. It was the young man who eyed Michael with some kind of malicious intent. But Michael completely ignored him. Cockatrice scale, griffin claw, silk bittercress, silent bittersweet, giant bitterweed, pest blade. Michael named the alchemy ingredients on the table one by one after they finally stopped laughing. Tonic of intellect. That's what you want me to brew. Am I right, Grandmaster? Michael asked Alred and Aishan without even opening up the golden parchment near the emerald cauldron fuming smoke. Tonic of intellect. A glint of surprise emerged in those old eyes. They should be surprised because they had to scour through the ancient scrolls to find the recipe, yet the young man before them immediately guessed what they could brew after taking a look at the ingredient for a second. How much purity can you reach, Ghost? Alred asked curiously. But instead of answering his question, Michael said in a rather serious tone, Grandmasters, this is a highly addictive potion. It's not even a potion. It's kind of a drug. It will unlock the full power of the brain for a few minutes. But after that, the brain will deteriorate to the point they won't even remember their own names. Alred and Aishan were completely taken aback by surprise. Michael could see the shock in their eyes, but these two old men were quite good at hiding their shock. Of course, we know that. Now please, demonstrate to us your skills. To Michael's knowledge, the tonic of intellect was a failed potion. Also, it was kind of a magical potion. Because whoever drinks the potion must be aware that they are drinking the potion of intellect. Otherwise, the potion wouldn't show any effects on them. In simple words, it would be no different than water. If one were aware at the time, the potion would make them a genius at their specialty for a few minutes. After the effects wore out, they would crave more potions. They would not be able to live without the potion as the potion was highly addictive. The continued consumption would kill the brain cells until the brain completely stops working. Nodding at the two grandmasters, Michael raised his right hand. In a blink of an eye, dark green flames appeared in the form of an orb. Many youngsters weren't even sure that the orb was the alchemy fire because it was hovering above his palm in a perfect shape of a sphere. The sheer control he had over the fire stunned even Professor Lane, let alone these youngsters. Ding! Congratulations to the host for successfully being a badass. The reward is 2,000 badass points. Ding! Congratulations to the host for successfully being a badass. The reward is 5,000 badass points. Ding! Congratulations to the host for successfully being a badass. The reward is 1,500 badass points. The system went crazy as he continuously heard the notification sounds ringing in his head to the point he willed the system to mute the sounds for 50 badass points. So it's true. You don't use a cauldron. Adavin's eyes went wide as soon as Michael threw one of the ingredients into the fire directly instead of using a cauldron. Sponsored content. Visit Readle. Me for extra chapters. It does look cool and easy. But the scars on my body will tell you another story. Michael continued to throw in the ingredients while talking to them, which surprised everyone even more. Hence, he received more and more badass points. It took me years of practice and lots of healing potions. If you have a ton of healing potions and desire to get burned over and over again, you can definitely use this method. The two grandmasters stared at him with palace faces. They couldn't believe he was extracting the essence while talking to them. Aishan even took a couple of steps back, fearing the fire would explode. However, nothing happened as Aishan feared. Instead, Michael continued to extract the essence, forming colorful beads above the green flames. Grandmasters, the vials please, Michael asked, bringing the two grandmasters out of shock. 3 vials, yet again Michael stunned them. The two old men could not even keep the calm smile on their faces anymore. On the other hand, Jennifer was staring at Michael without batting an eye. She was completely fixated on his grace and technique of brewing the potion. Until now, she thought her teacher, Alred, was the most talented. But, after seeing Alred acting like a student in front of Michael, she learned how wrong she is. Already held 2 vials while Aishan had 1 waiting for Michael to finish combining the essence beads into a huge blob of potion. Then, with a slow, graceful movement of his hand, Michael split the maroon clump into 3 and sent each clump flying into a vial. That's how you brew 90% pure tonic of intellect. Michael cracked his neck left and right as the green orb of fire vanished into thin air. In front of him, the Grandmasters held the 3 vials with the sparkling maroon potion. Their bodies were rigid as though they were petrified. "My lord, Tiriana has departed from the warship and heading to Idrizel." Just as everyone was murmuring in shock, Michael heard Azazel's voice in his head. The next day, there were no clouds in the blue sky as far as the eye could see. The sunlight was warm yet not overbearing. The occasional breeze that brushed past carried away the noise within the city, refreshing everyone on the streets. Today was the first day of the alchemy competition. The first rays of sunlight broke through the boundary of the land and shone upon the city streets filled with alchemists in green robes like ants leaving their nests. Considering the alchemists believed green robes gave them better control over the fire and today was a big day, they all wore emerald green robes. From the aerial view, the streets looked like they were painted green. Although their paths differed, their final destination was the giant cauldron in the city's center. Today, all the shops within Oxshore City opened much earlier than usual. Countless people climbed out of their warm beds, stood at the door, and looked at the large group of alchemists bustling through the streets. Typically, seeing a large group of any of the specializations was rare. To alchemy, the Alchemist Guild competition was such an event that brought all the alchemists under one roof. The people didn't miss experiencing such a rare event. On this special day, Noah woke up very early. Before leaving the bed, he sat cross-legged to meditate for an hour. Only after he calmed down his nerves, collected his thoughts, and conversed telepathically with his mentor, he slowly opened his eyes. Turning his head to the side, he saw Alicia curling on the bed next to Norvin. "Good morning, Alicia." He bent down to gently kiss her on the forehead and then rubbed Norvin's head to wake him up. "What the hell is taking you so long?" Norvin banged the door sitting atop Noah's shoulder. Since Alicia was changing, they waited for almost an hour outside the room. 5 minutes, Alicia's cold voice came from inside as Norvin rolled his eyes. "That's what you said 30 minutes ago." This time, they got no response from Alicia. Since they obviously have to wait outside for another 30 minutes, Norvin turned his gaze towards Noah, who remained calm, leaning on the wall. Just like Michael, Noah didn't believe green robes would give them better control over fire. Thus, he was in his usual white dress. "Where is the competition taking place again?" asked Norvin. "In the Aqua Arena adjacent to the guild." The guild had no place to hold the thousands of spectators and competitors. So every time they'd host the competition in the Aqua Arena, "Let's go." Finally, Alicia opened the door, revealing her long white dress matching Noah's robes. She looked gorgeous even with the mask changing her natural face. Noah locked his arms with her and walked out of the inn with 2 goals: save the guild leader and win the competition. Chapter 497. The 6-star alchemist Hendrix Gardner. Thinking about having thousands of people raising their flames and refining pills and potions on the same platform simultaneously, Noah couldn't help feeling a little excited. That spectacular manner was likely to be extremely thrilling. As they flew above the crowd for a few moments, the Aqua Arena that Asian had mentioned early had gradually appeared in their sight. Noah raised his gaze at the cauldron-like building in the distance. Behind the guild building, Noah could vaguely notice the colossal arena. Currently, there were fully armed Aqua Clan soldiers stationed outside the building to maintain order. The green-robed crowd flooded towards the Alchemist Guild building, and it was evident to Noah that the competition had gathered thousands of alchemists from all over the world. The kingdom would receive a huge blow if a riot were to occur. Therefore, the royal family of Idrizel and the guild were extremely cautious regarding maintaining order. Unfortunately, the crowd caused finding the assassin or how Gabriel planned to assassinate the guild leader Hendrix Gardner. There were inspectors from the Alchemist Guild stationed at the entrance. Only guild members and the participants were allowed to enter from this entrance while the spectators entered the arena through the west side entrance. "Good luck, Noah." Alicia pecked Noah on the cheek before flying towards the west entrance with Norvin. After Alicia left, Noah squeezed through the participants in the guild hall and finally entered the arena adjacent to the guild. Finally, Noah breathed a sigh of relief as the arena had enough space to accommodate all the participants without squeezing them together. Standing at the entrance, Noah looked at the large arena built with an aquatic blue marble to the point that he felt like he was standing inside an ocean. He could not help but shake his head in praise. The arena was round oval, with countless seats symmetrically like shark teeth. Opposite the audience seats, VIP seats were decorated lavishly, specially catered for the judges and special guests. As his gaze swept over the incomparably large open ground, Noah discovered that thousands of jade square tables scattered neatly, resembling a green rock military unit standing still. Currently, countless alchemists were participating in the competition, quietly seated cross-legged on a stone chair behind the jade tables within the open ground. But as time flowed, moving closer to the beginning of the competition, more and more alchemists swarmed into the arena. They took seats randomly since no table number or token was allocating specific tables for a particular participant. Noah Winston. Noah heard a familiar voice, and the voice immediately made Noah smile. Grandmaster Asian. Noah turned around to see Grandmaster Asian walking toward him. How is my favorite young man? Asian embraced Noah in a tight hug. Doing wonderful, uncle. Sorry. Noah cleared his throat, realizing they were not alone. Grandmaster Asian. I am glad to hear that. Asian patted Noah's shoulder. Then Asian ascended to the air, taking Noah with him. Let's go to the VIP seats first. There is still some time until the start of the competition. I want you to meet some important people. It might help you do your other thing. Asian winked at Noah as Noah nodded at him. Asian was the one who tipped Noah about the assassination plot. Because of Gabriel's connection in and out of the guild, Asian couldn't trust anyone except Noah. Gabriel hasn't arrived yet. But you need to be careful about the new guy. I can't quite put my fingers in it, but he gives me chills. Asian's face turned serious after they left the ground and ascended to the air above. Before Noah could ask who that man was, they reached the VIP seating, where Noah saw Alred and an old man with brown hair and a few stripes of gray hair leisurely sitting on the chair in the middle. He wore a purple robe with golden engravings and seemed to meditate with closed eyes. That is the guild leader, Hendrix Gardner, a 6-star alchemist. Before Gabriel became who he is today, Lord Hendrix had given him a lot of care. It would not be an overstatement to say that he was the mentor of Gabriel. Asian softly said. Noah's eyebrows twitched slightly. He had only heard about Hendrix, but this was the first time he had seen the man. The old man with tired eyes appeared to have sensed the gazes focused on him and suddenly turned his head around. He turned his seemingly perplexed gaze toward Noah's side. A friendly smile appeared on the dried skin on his face. Seeing that the old man had turned his head over, Asian hurriedly bowed and greeted. After which, they slowly walked to the front row. Lord Hendrix Gardner, how was your journey to Idrizel? The old man slowly opened his eyes, turning his head to look at Asian. It's Asian, right? You've reached the 5-star level. Your progress is not bad at all. Hendrix swept his turbid gaze at the two of them and laughed softly. It's all because of Lord Hendrix's teachings the last time around. Asian respectively said. All that I can speak about is some of my personal experience. The most important thing is depending on yourselves. Hendrix Gardner smiled, shaking his head. He suddenly turned his gaze toward Noah behind Asian. Who is this young man, Asian? Your disciple? With a friendly smile, Hendrix asked Asian, Lord Hendrix, this young man is Noah Winston. He is the youngest Guardian Captain. Adavan introduced Noah to Hendrix as Noah bowed slightly to show his respect to the 6-star alchemist before him, not only the youngest Guardian Captain but also a talented alchemist. I can see the talent in your eyes. Hendrix Gardner's voice was neither hurried nor slow. Although it was a little hoarse, it had a certain magical-like property that did not allow others to interrupt his words. Sponsored content. Visit Riedel. Me for extra chapters. Noah calmly smiled but did not continue to say anything on this topic. Hendrix Gardner smiled and stared at Noah. His gaze seemed to have a deeper meaning as he paused on that calm face for a while. I wish you good luck, young man. You will need it. Hendrix calmly said. But something told Noah his simple words contained wisdom and meaning behind. Does he know about the assassination plot on his life? Noah couldn't help asking himself after hearing Hendrix's words. You should learn some aura hiding spells, young man. If you ever plan to visit that is, Hendrix continued with the same calm smile on his face. However, this time, his words were heavy as though he had sensed Noah's secret. Don't tell me that he sensed the teacher's presence? Noah blinked his eyes. There was a change in his heart as he muttered, "Teacher." Noah telepathically called for his teacher. "Relax, he can't sense me. But be careful, I have a strange feeling about him." Noah heard Andreas' voice in his head. "Perhaps I have sensed wrongly," Hendrix said to himself. The sudden aura he felt or thought he felt wasn't around him anymore. The old man sighed in disappointment. Then he leaned back against the chair, appearing a little absent-minded as he entered a trance while his memory played. Back then, when Hendrix Gardner was still young, he had coincidentally met a revenant of an old man in a dungeon he and his friends adventured. Because of Hendrix's thirst for knowledge and young blood, he was separated from his group, ended up meeting the revenant, and spent 3 days with the old man. During those 3 days, the old man taught him a few things and gave him a scroll containing alchemy knowledge. By borrowing what the old man had taught, the initially unknown Hendrix Gardner, an adventurer with a basic talent for alchemy, advanced step by step to his current stage. Only after reaching the 6-star level, Hendrix had realized how terrifyingly talented the old revenant was when he was alive. Even though he and his fellow 6-star alchemists in were praised as the heavenly alchemists and worshipped by the world of alchemists, he knew none of them could hold a torch to the old man. Which was the reason Hendrix always remained humble despite his fame and stardom. The vague aura he sensed on Noah a moment ago was quite similar to the one that the old man had back then. It was the reason that Hendrix suddenly got lost in their thoughts. However, as Xian was about to take his seat, a burst of old laughter was emitted from a passageway in the middle of the seats. "I knew you would run to Lord Hendrix as fast as your old legs could." Hearing the laughter, everyone turned their heads around to take a look. When they saw a white-haired old man wearing golden robes walking towards Hendrix. The person who arrived at the stage was Alred, whom Noah had when he came to the Guardian Guild. Jennifer also followed closely behind. Today, she was wearing a pale green alchemist robe that was clearly specially tailored for her using the best materials. Her spacious sleeves had bright silk pulled around them to form a lotus shape. This gave her an elegance that came from nowhere. However, Noah clearly knew her character and understood that this young lady, who appeared quiet on the surface, was actually a quirky person. As his gaze swept past Jennifer, Noah discovered that beside her was a tall lady wearing a luxurious and brilliant dress. Compared to the cute and petite Jennifer, the lady was mature and had a nobility feel around her. When she saw Xian and Noah, she just nodded to acknowledge their existence and then looked at the alchemists gathering down. There was an iciness and matured aura all over this lady. As her pretty eyes moved, a temptation naturally appeared. Noah's gaze swept past the two ladies and finally landed on Alred. He bowed and greeted with a smile. "Grandmaster Alred, this young man is Noah, whom I have mentioned to you. His ability is extraordinary," Adavan told Alred and the lady standing beside, pointing at Noah. Hearing Alred's evaluation, Jennifer by the side tooted, secretly muttering something. It was likely that she was not satisfied by these words of Alred. "Nice to meet you, Master Noah." The hazel eyes of the lady stared at Noah. Then she smiled. The instant she smiled, it surprised some noble family descendants around the VIP seats since Eve Voldegard was known to treat people coldly. You're tuning in to the Wang Lin's Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.